My name is Richard Donnelly, but everyone calls me Rick. I'm the son of James and Aaron Donnelly. Yeah, full-blooded South Boston Irish, here. Hot temper? Check. Iron jaw? Check. Fists calloused from multiple fights? Check. Stupid pig from Southie? Check. Yeah, I grew up in South Boston, where the Irish mob ran the show. There have been a few movies about it. Those movies barely scratched the surface, though. Life wasn't easy on us. Mom and Dad did what they could for me, but school still sucked. I had a few close friends, but there were always stupid a-holes around, too. I never shied away from a fight, and I usually ended up either in detention or suspended. It took me 2 tries to get through 8th grade because of stupid shitheads picking fights with me. I won more than I lost, I'm proud to say. No matter what, though, I'd promised my mom that I wouldn't do or sell drugs. Why did I promise her that? Simple answer. She died of breast cancer. By the time the doctors caught it, she was already in stage 4. Nothing they could really do for her. I made her that promise on her deathbed, right before I started high school. Dad took Mom's death really hard. He soon found himself at the bottom of a whiskey bottle, every damn night. Luck of the Irish? What a joke. If you want to know what the luckiest day of my life was, it was when I got arrested at the age of 17 for assault and battery. Hey, the shit stain that I smashed was trying to rob old lady O'Connor. Not in my neighborhood, damn it. I guess if I'd stopped beating on him when he finally let go of the purse, I wouldn't have faced any charges. Was I that smart, though? You already know the answer to that. The cops pulled me off and slapped me in cuffs as I wailed away on Dwight Fisher's face. Imagine the scene in Game of Thrones, where Jon Snow is beating the shit out of Ramsay Bolton, and you get the idea. My fist, his face, till the fat lady sings. Or in this case, till a couple of Boston's finest pulled me off the turd-faced. Anyways, to make a long story a bit shorter, I only got 6 months in juvie for that dust-up. Thanks to witnesses who testified that I was only helping out our neighborhood matriarch. The judge wanted to make an example of me, though. Hey, it could have been a lot worse. Strangely enough, I didn't get into nearly as many fights in the joint as I did on the outside. I had to fight one guy on my first day. After that, they left me alone. Go figure, right? While I was inside, my life took another shit biscuit on me. My dad died. Grams and Gramps found him after he didn't answer his phone for 2 days, and they went over to check on him. From what they told me, he drunk 3/5 of Jameson, and that was all she wrote. He never got over Mom dying, and I hope they were together in heaven. At least they let me out to attend his funeral. Yeah, it hurt like hell, but that was when I met Ms. Murphy. Ms. Amelia Murphy was an older black lady who acted as a counselor in juvie. She was the no-nonsense type, but deep down, she had a heart of gold. After hours of talking through my problems, she asked if there was anything I liked doing as a hobby. When I told her that I liked computers, since I'd fixed my dad's PC a few times before he died, she asked if I would like to train on them. I jumped at the chance. She set everything up for me, for after I got out. She talked to Grams and Gramps about it, and said that the city of Boston would foot half the bill for my training. They footed the other half. With my credits from the education in juvie, I went on to finish my junior year, and managed to keep my nose clean through senior year, too. Ms. Murphy stayed in my life, even after I got out of juvie. She and her daughter, Alicia, became regulars at Grams and Gramps' place for Sunday dinner after evening. Massachusetts. Alicia was a year older than me, and I went over to their house some nights, so she could help me study. It didn't hurt that she was wicked hot either. Nothing happened, though. I guess it was the color barrier, or whatever they call it. I was scared to ask her out, thinking she'd probably turn me down flat. For reference, she looks quite a bit like I and Naomi King, but taller and with bigger tits. I eventually came to think of her as my best friend. She already saw me as one of her best friends, so that made it easier. So yeah, I'd gone to live with Grams and Gramps McKinnon, Mom's parents, after I got out. Dad's folks died before I was born, so I never knew them. Senior year, I had a breakout season in baseball, and ended up with a full-ride scholarship to the University of Florida. Hey, I thought my luck was finally turning around. Now, Mom and Dad raised me to always treat women right. They taught me that if a lady was in trouble, to do what I could to help her out. So, in my freshman year as a Gator, I ended up in my umpteenth fight, the result of which led to my first date with Sophie Randall. Hell, she was hot. Sophie wore her long red hair in a ponytail most of the time. When several frat boys tried to get her to go with them, and she told them hell no, I had to step in. It was just their shitty luck that I just finished batting practice. I was on my way back to my dorm, bat in hand. I know what you're thinking. No, I never went looking for trouble. Trouble just had a way of finding me. In this case, I wasn't going to allow Sophie to get assaulted by these stupid dorks. When two of them grabbed her, I saw red, and not the red on her head. So, with aluminium bat in hand, I waded into the fray. Nah, I didn't go in swinging wildly. Shit, gimme some credit here. I used it more like a nightstick, using each end to deliver shots to ribs, nuts, or to the jaw of an unlucky shitheads. I took a few hits, myself, but not enough to feel through the adrenaline. I'd feel it in the morning, though. Nah, I didn't try any of that let the girl go shit, either. I hate cliches, you know? Besides, why warn the stupid pigs? No point to it, really. If anyone has a problem with me not fighting fair, then they can go screw themselves. Sophie had called campus security, while I beat the shit out of those shit stains. They arrived just after the last douchebag hit the ground. Their first act was to slap me in cuffs, of course. I wasn't any stranger to police procedure, but Sophie squared it all away with a few statements. She identified me as the guy who'd rescued her after those pigs tried to manhandle her over behind a dumpster. I looked where she pointed, and sure enough, there was a dumpster. So, that's where they'd planned to take her. Oh well, at least they wouldn't get her now. Once they got their reports filled out and took our names and student ID numbers, they let us go. In turn, they placed the frat boys in cuffs and called the local cops to come get them. Are you okay? I asked. Did those stupid pigs hurt you? I'm okay, thank you, she replied in her southern drawl. She smiled as I stood there. Your eye is gonna need some attention. Why don't y'all come back to my dorm room, and I'll give you some ice for your eye. I'm planning to go for a nursing degree, so you're in good hands. What's your name, sir? I laughed at that last part. My name's Rick Donnelly, not sir. I already know that you're Sophie Randall. We have English 101 together. Oh, that's right. You're the new shortstop, ain't ya? That's me. You a baseball fan? Are you kidding? I love the Devil Rays. Sophie replied, making me smile. Super cute, sexy, smart, and loves baseball? Hell yeah. Now, come on. Where y'all from? Boston, I said, smiling as we started walking towards her dorm. South Boston, if it makes any difference. So, you're a Yankee, she snorted and gave me a disgusted look. When I raised an eyebrow, she laughed lightly and winked at me. Don't worry, honey. I love your accent. It's cute. Well, your accent is sexy, I retorted, before my mouth filter could kick in. Well, ain't you a smooth talker? She laughed again. Sorry about that. I blushed. No filter, sometimes. We're kind of blunt, where I come from. I think blunt is an understatement, Rick. Don't worry about it, though. I like bluntness. It shows that y'all are honest. Come on up, we're here. Sure enough, while we'd walked and talked, we'd also arrived at her dorm. I checked my watch and saw that it was only a little past 9 p.m. I remembered from orientation that dorm curfew hit at 10. Lead the way, Sophie, I shrugged. Once we got to her room, she gave me an ice pack and a towel, and I put it on my eye. In spite of that, I knew I'd have a shiner the next day. But with the ice pack on, it wouldn't be as swollen. So there was that. So, what's your story, hon? Sophie asked. Once she'd given me a few band-aids for some scrapes on my jaw and arms. My green eyes looked into her blue orbs, and I ran my hand back through my reddish-brown hair. I just felt the need to be totally honest with her. I told her about my life in Southie and how badly it had gone, so far. I didn't leave out anything major, even telling her about my stint in juvie. Y'all have had it kinda rough, huh? She said, sympathetically. That's one way to put it, I shrugged back with a smirk. Then I had to go and open my big mouth again. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you're wicked gorgeous. Wicked, she said, raising her eyebrows with a look of confusion mixed with offense. Sorry, wicked means totally or really, as in you're really, totally hot. Well, thank you, Rick, she said and blushed. You're wicked cute yourself. I prefer ruggedly handsome, with a face full of character, but I guess I can settle for cute, I shrugged again. Then she surprised the shit out of me by giving me a really hot kiss. Before I knew it, I dropped the ice pack. My arms went around her, and we engaged in a full contact game of tonsil hockey. Holy Mary, Mother of God. I felt my Johnny getting harder than a girder, and almost as big. That woman could kiss. She broke that sexy kiss way too soon, though. Slow down there, cowboy, she giggled, as she saw the confused look on my face. That was a thank you for saving me earlier. It wasn't an invitation into my panties, though. You should know that I'm a good girl, not some sorority 304, okay? I understand. I nodded and gulped. I just really want to kiss you, some more. You're wicked awesome at it. She giggled. retrieved the ice pack from her bed, and gently placed it over my eye again. Then she leaned in and gave me the softest, sweetest kiss that I'd ever had. "Now, you just hold that in place, you hear?" "You got it, girl," I replied, holding the pack over my developing shiner. Then I looked around the room, noticing that the other bed didn't even look used. "Don't you have a roomie?" She giggled again. "No, I guess I got lucky on that. The girl who was supposed to room with me got expelled before I even got here. Nobody would say why, though." She shrugged as she finished the explanation. "Shit, you got better luck than I do." I chuckled and shook my head. "Well, Mr. Donnelly," she said, giving me a sexy smile while biting her lower lip, "I think your luck is about to change for the better. And so is mine." The next 3 years flew by, but in a good way, mostly. The frat boys that assaulted Sophie got expelled, since, surprise, surprise, it wasn't their first near miss with the assault charge. In fact, the Sophie incident turned out to be their third strike. Stupid shit. Sophie and I started dating, and I excelled at baseball. What can I say? I know how to swing a bat. No pun intended. I also excelled with Sophie, and by our third date, I slid into home. Pun intended. She scored several times on my home run, too. Okay. Enough baseball sex puns, for now. Honest. Most of our dates went great, and the sex was awesome. That is, until I discovered a dark side to my red-headed love. You know the saying, red on the head, fire in the bed? Well, she also had a fire inside her head. Even though her eyes were blue, they turned nasty green whenever she saw me even talking with another person of the female gender. First time we had a huge fight. I stood my ground while she called me everything but a child of God. Then I told her, in no uncertain terms, that if she couldn't trust me, we were done. Then I walked out on her. No, I hadn't cheated on her. I wouldn't cheat on her. Shit, I thought she would have known that by the end of sophomore year. I took that time, after our breakup, to get my CompTIA A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and Server Plus certifications. Those tests are wicked hard, but I passed them all. Hell, it kept my mind off the shit biscuit my love life had turned into. Anyway, Sophie and I didn't talk for 5 weeks, until she sent me a text, asking me to meet her. I seriously considered telling her to screw off. Maybe in hindsight, I should have done just that. But shit, I couldn't see the future. I was young, stupid, and hell if I didn't still love her. When I met her at what used to be our usual spot, she sat beside me and wouldn't look at me for a long moment. When it was obvious to her that I wasn't going to say shit, she spoke. "I'm sorry, Rick," she whispered. "I'm sorry about what I said, after I saw you talking to that witch." "Okay," I said. "Sophie, if you don't trust me, there's nothing I can say or do to make you." Since you never asked, Kate was telling me that she and Ted wanted to invite us to their engagement party. I had to go alone, because you don't trust me. By the way, Kate isn't a witch. You should have known that. Then she surprised me as the waterworks started. She held her face in her hands and bawled her eyes out. It broke my heart, so I leaned over and put my arm around her shoulders. "I'm so sorry, Rick," she sobbed, wrapping both arms around me. "I should have trusted you, baby. I will from now on. I promise. Please give me another chance. You won't regret it." "Why don't you trust me?" I asked, now curious. "You remember when I told you about Mom and Daddy getting a divorce?" she asked. "Yeah, but you never said why," I recalled. "Daddy cheated on Mom," she sniffled, looking me dead in the eyes. "When I told Mom that I was dating you, she said that all damn Yankees were the same. Daddy's from New York, originally." "Well, I ain't from New York," I snorted in derision. "Yeah, you know about the Boston-New York rivalry, right? If you don't know about it, crawl out from under your rock." "I know that, baby," she said, tears still streaming down her face. "Mom wouldn't stop talking about what you'd end up doing to me, though. She just knew that you'd cheat on me, or betray me somehow. I'm ashamed to say that I listened to her. You have to believe me, Rick. I love you, and I swear to God, I trust you. Give me a chance to prove it, okay?" A bit dramatic? Damn right it was. Did I believe her? Yeah, I guess I did. The makeup sex that night was wicked awesome. We dated throughout the rest of college. Sophie helped me a lot. When in my junior year, shit went sideways for me again. Twice. In rapid succession. First, Gramps died of a heart attack, followed shortly after by Gramps. No, she didn't die of a heart attack. She died of a broken heart, since Gramps was the love of her life. She just didn't want to go on without him. To anyone who says that dying of a broken heart is a myth, screw you. I know it's true. Coach Winston gave me 2 weeks to fly back to Boston and get my shit sorted out. I also got special dispensation from my professors, telling me I could make up the work when I got back. The shit being double funeral arrangements. Ms. Murphy and Alicia helped, of course. God bless them, always. Grams and Gramps had decently sizable life insurance, and they named me sole beneficiary in their joint will. Alicia and I became even closer friends than we were before. Ms. Murphy never talked about her husband, but Alicia told me that her dad died when she was young, too. Drunk driver ran him off the road and died, too. Are you still hanging around these parts? I asked, making conversation after the heavy talk was over. Nah, I got a scholarship to Caltech, out in California, she answered. I'm going for my master's in engineering. Are you still going for computer science, down at Florida? Yeah, I'm getting my bachelor's when I graduate, I confirmed, with a sad smile. There are a couple MLB teams scouting me, too. I just wish Grams and Gramps were still alive, not to mention Mom and Dad. I just want to make them proud, you know? I know, hon, she sniffed, giving me a hug. I wish Dad was still alive, too. They're all up in heaven now, looking down and being wicked proud of us, though. You're right, I grinned, in spite of myself. I know they are, too. So, Mom tells me you got a woman. Is she good to you? Alicia asked, taking me aback for a second. Yeah, Sophie is amazing, I replied, a smile of happiness coming to my face. She's wicked awesome. I'm thinking of asking her to marry me. First thing I saw on Alicia's face was surprise, followed by a look I couldn't quite place. That's good, hon. I'm glad you found someone. You deserve some happiness. Hey, what about you? Anyone special in your life? I asked, smiling. Not at the moment, she said after a long pause. My last boyfriend turned out to be a wicked a-hole. So no, and I'm not really looking right now. Sorry to hear that, sweetie, I replied, hoping she found someone good and soon. You deserve to be happy too. Thanks, Rick. She gave me a radiant smile, hugging me and kissing my cheek. I have to go, but here's my number if you ever need anything. And I do mean anything, okay? Hey, same here, I told her, earnestly. I gave her my number too, and we programmed them into our respective cell phones. You need me, I'm there. She hugged me again, and I hugged her back. We said our goodbyes and went our separate ways. Thinking back, I'm pretty sure that Alicia is the only friend I know from my childhood who didn't go to prison. Go figure, right? The lawyer read the will, and I collected my grandparents' estate. Only Ms. Murphy was there with me, since Alicia took an early flight to Los Angeles. We said our goodbyes when she dropped me off at the airport for the flight back to Florida. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. No, I didn't become wicked rich. I did inherit a tidy sum, though, even after funeral expenses. I also inherited Graham's engagement ring, as well as a bunch of other family heirlooms. I made arrangements and had everything shipped to me, down in Gainesville. I rented a long-term storage unit there and put everything into storage while I finished my degree. You might think I'd suffered enough, right? Not by a long shot, kids. No, I don't mean Sophie. I mean my burgeoning baseball career and how it all came to a screeching halt. And by screeching, I mean that literally. When I said it all happened in rapid succession, I wasn't kidding. First game back, boom. We'd made it into the College World Series, and Game 1 was going well. I'd already hit a double and a homer with 2 RBIs, and we were up by 5 going into the 9th inning. Our pitcher threw a slider, and the batter hit a bouncer in my direction. They had runners at first and second, so I moved as fast as I could. I had to run into the baseline to grab the bouncer, and turn just in time for the runner to slam into me hard. He pushed me down, and stomped on my left kneecap as he ran over me. That caused the aforementioned screeching, from yours truly. I'd held onto the ball, at least. I then somehow threw it in the general direction of second, from flat on my back. Got a double play. I found that out later, though. When the play finally ended, the ump ejected the stupid shithead that ran me over, not to mention half of each bench as the dugouts cleared for an infield brawl. When all the dust settled, my left leg was in a cast and traction at the university hospital, and my girlfriend sat beside my bed, holding my hand. Then the doctor came in and told me the bad news. Oh yeah, the good news was, we won the game. Now for the bad news. My kneecap was shattered by the stupid cleats, not to mention extensive tendon and ligament damage. I stared down 6 months of rehab, and that was after they put in a new kneecap for me. One of those new artificial knees, made from titanium and silicone. I'd be able to walk and even run a bit, but I'd never be able to play college baseball again. As for the majors, yeah right, my baseball career ended on that field in Gainesville. I kinda slipped into depression at that point, and only Sophie kept me alive, so to speak. Yeah, I actually considered ending it all at one point. I never said anything, but I did consider it. Sophie was there for me, every step of the way, though. She had finished her nursing degree, and now had a job as an RN at the university hospital. She pulled a couple strings to get assigned as my nurse, assisting the physical therapist with my recovery. Then she'd drive me home every night, and make sweet love to me. As much as I felt sorry for myself, right after it happened, she helped me through it all. I'm just glad that the university didn't yank my scholarship after my injury. That would have sucked, but Coach put me at ease. He felt just as shitty as everyone else over what happened. Well, everyone except for the stupid shithead who stomped on my knee. He didn't seem to care when we went to the NCAA hearing on the incident. Yeah, Coach Winston filed a complaint with the NCAA, but since Dwight Hollister was a rising star, destined for the MLB, the hearing was pretty one-sided. Even though the video showed him purposely stomp on my knee, he claimed that he just lost his balance. He gave an insincere apology, and they let him off with a warning. After the hearing, he came up to where I stood with Coach and my NCAA rep. Then he stuck out his hand. I shook it, out of reflex, but he wouldn't let go as he spoke. "Hey man, I'm sorry I stepped on you by accident. You know it was an accident, right? I don't want there to be no misunderstanding, you know?" In answer, I squeezed hard. He tried squeezing my hand as he spoke, but my dad had taught me to always extend my index and middle fingers along someone's wrist, just in case. He hadn't taken that precaution, though, so I squeezed back as I spoke back to him. "Karma is a wicked witch. Be careful now, Dwight." Then I let his hand go, and he stepped back. The stupid pig looked like he wanted to take a swing at me. I think if Coach and our rep hadn't been there, he might have tried. I really wanted to shove my crutch up his stupid arse, but he never gave me an excuse. I'm just glad that I picked a good career field to fall back on, in case baseball didn't work out, which it didn't, as you can see. So, once I graduated, I started making money as a freelance IT guy. Word spread pretty fast, and the students at the university became some of my best clients. I also met Sophie's mom, Diana, and she hated me from the get-go. No matter what I said, she glared at me like I was the devil himself. I guess I was a Yankee devil to her. After what her ex did, she got in little digs at me every time she opened her mouth. You know how Southern belles are, right? If not, they can give you a compliment while insulting you at the same damn time. Screw if I know how they do it, but they do it. Finally, I'd had enough. "Look, Miss Sterling," I said tightly, addressing her by her maiden name. "I'm not your stupid ex-husband. I ain't even from New York. I'm not going to cheat on your daughter. If you want me out of here, well, that's just too bad. I love Sophie, and I ain't going anywhere." Diana got a look of pure shock on her face, and so did Sophie. Nobody talked to her mom that way. Well, nobody but an Irish hooligan from Southie. "No one talks to me that way, young man," Diana said, the look of shock still on her face. "Nobody till now, you mean?" I shot back. "I've been taking your veiled insults for the last 4 hours, and I'm done taking him. I get it. You don't think I'm good enough for Sophie. All I want is a chance to prove you wrong. If you won't give me that chance, that's still too bad. We've been together since freshman year. I haven't cheated on her, and I won't ever cheat on her." "Fine," she said, after a long few moments. "You want a chance, you got one, Rick. You hurt my daughter in any way, and I swear to Almighty God, you will regret it." "Accepted, ma'am," I replied, holding out my hand to her. We shook once, nodded to each other, and that was that. Diana started treating me a lot better after that day. She stopped with the backhanded compliments and little digs. She was even cordial now. Life started to look up again. Sophie and I lived together for 6 months before I popped the question. I had enough money saved up to give her a fairly nice, but small wedding. I'd been working up to the proposal. I kept up the rehab on my knee and could finally get down on one knee with only minimal pain. I surprised her when I pulled out the black felt ring box and surprised her again by moving smoothly down to my right knee. I didn't even wince as I opened the box and smiled up at her. "Sophie Randall, will you marry me?" Her hand flew to her face, and I saw tears rolling down her cheeks. Yes. Oh my God, yes," she giggled as she jumped up and down for a minute. Then she let me slide the ring onto her left ring finger. Yeah, I gave her Graham's engagement ring. It had given Grams and Gramps 56 good years together before his heart attack and her passing a week later. I hoped we could beat that record. Diana took the news surprisingly well. Spending Sundays together with her and Sophie after church probably had a lot to do with it. It felt good that she'd finally started to like me, if not trust me. Breaking the news to our, mostly her, friends was a mixed bag. Most of her girlfriends liked me already. Most of her male friends were also fairly cool with it. However, Brad Douglas, Gerald Shoemaker, and Dwight Bagwell hated me already. News of our engagement just made it worse. See, Dwight was Sophie's ex-boyfriend from high school. She dumped him after a huge fight, when she wouldn't give it up to him on a regular basis. He thought that since he took her virginity, she owed him sex whenever he wanted it. She didn't see it that way. He never got over the breakup. Dwight also had a rough life, or so he says. His mom died when he was a baby, leaving his asshat, overbearing father to raise him. So, I guess he came by it honestly. It didn't hurt him that his daddy was also the town sheriff, either. He got a pass on some serious shit, from what Sophie told me. What made things worse was that I started getting harassed by the cops. Yeah, you guessed it. Dwight and his cronies were on the force, in the small burg just south of Gainesville, where we all lived. So, shortly after news of our engagement got around town, the cops started following me. Yeah, no nepotism there, with Dwight's douchebag father employing his douchebag son, right? As a nurse, Sophie worked long hours at the hospital in Gainesville, while I worked odd hours some days, too. I'd kept up my freelance IT business and got calls at all hours to help someone with this problem or that. I'd been able to buy a sweet ride for cash shortly after graduation. A local used car dealer sold me a 1969 Chevy Camaro for a reasonable price. I paid $5,000 for it, out the door. I took it to a local mechanic, and he was impressed by how good of a condition it was in. It had a few little things wrong, but $300 later, it was running like new. It wasn't my first car, but it was sure as shit better than the old Honda Civic that Dad left me when he died. I'd sold that one for $200 before moving down to Florida for school. Having that big muscle car was a blessing and a curse. As long as I wasn't in town, it was pure fun on the road. Whenever I was in town, I kept it right on the speed limit. I signaled every time I changed lanes or made a turn. Last, but not least, I made damn sure I didn't give Dwight or one of his flunkies an excuse to pull me over and ticket me. I bet you've noticed that I've known 3 stupid shitbuckets named Dwight in my life. Well, every one of them is a grade A number 1 douchebag. Let me be clear. I'm not saying that all guys named Dwight are dickheads. Just every single one of them that I've known. Anyway, I thought up some nicknames for the 3 turd hats. Brad became Deputy Dog, Gerald became Gumshoe, and Dwight became D-Bag. You already know what the D stands for. If you don't, it rhymes with whoosh. Now, there's also kind of a mascot for that little town. Big Roscoe is his name. Big Roscoe, in case you were wondering, is the biggest alligator I've ever seen. Legend has it, he's been around since the town was founded, over 100 years ago. I ain't gonna call anyone a liar on that. Hell, as big as that muncher is, I wouldn't doubt it. Luckily, he stayed in his part of the swamp to the north of US, hanging out mostly in a good-sized pond where the road bends. If you take that curve too fast, you could go flying off the road, right into Big Roscoe's pond. They even have signs up. I got a good look at him, driving up to Gainesville one day. I slowed down for the curve and glanced to my left. Fucking massive comes close to describing his size, but not quite. He ain't as big as the gator in that one movie about the big gator in a lake, but he's still fucking huge. If I had to guess, Big Roscoe had to be at least 18 feet long. Yeah, I make it a habit to avoid dinosaurs as much as possible. Avoiding cavemen like Deputy Dog, Gumshoe, and D-Bag wasn't so easy, though. They tried damn near everything to get me to screw up. They'd ride my bumper. They'd hit their lights and siren, then go around me when I pulled over. They even went so far as to follow me home. Then they'd follow me to work, if it was in town, the next day. I knew how to handle pigs, though. Not all cops are pigs, but D-Bag and his crew sure smelled a lot like bacon. A few of our friends liked to do some drinking after work, in the evenings. I stopped in once, but when I saw Dwight himself drive by, I told the guys that I'd have to take a rain check. Sure enough, as soon as I got on the road, D-Bag pulled me over on suspicion of drunk driving. He got pissed when I blew clean on the breathalyzer. I just smirked at him, turned on my 302, and laid a little rubber. I stayed at the speed limit all the way home, though. I've about had enough of your stupid ex-boyfriend and his trolls, baby, I said with a sigh, as we ate dinner that night. D-Bag pulled me over when I left Lucky's this afternoon. I hadn't even had a drink, but he pulled me over and gave me a damn breathalyzer. I can't believe that ass, Sophie said, getting angry too. Then she took a deep breath. I'll talk to him tomorrow, babe. If he doesn't leave you alone from now on, I'll report him to the sheriff myself. I don't care if he is his daddy. He'll have to do something. She got up and got me a bottled Guinness from the fridge. I smiled and thanked her when she handed it to me. Yeah, I know. My dad died of alcohol poisoning. I'm Irish, though. If we aren't drinking, we're fighting or screwing. Sometimes, all in the same night. But seriously, I don't drink like my dad did. I don't come anywhere near close to his level of devotion to the bottle. I have a beer a day, and I'm good to go. Don't worry about Dwight and his boys, baby, Sophie said with a smile, as I finished rinsing the dishes and putting them in the dishwasher. She filled up the soap part, closed it, and started it washing. I'm not, but if they keep going how they're going, I won't even bother to report him. One thing I hate is dirty cops. I growled. I know it's tempting, but don't do anything that will land you in prison, baby, she warned me lovingly, stroking my cheek. Now, come to bed, and let me make you a happy man. Who the hell was I to argue with that? Well, D-Bag and his douche squad finally relented, after Sophie gave them a swift figurative kick in the butt. The only thing I heard from D-Bag before our wedding was that a real man would fight his own battles. He wouldn't let his woman do the fighting for him. It took every last ounce of willpower I had not to take a baseball bat to his head, but I swallowed my pride and let the stupid pig slide that time. We got married in Sophie's church. None of the douche squad were invited, thanks to Diana and Sophie. I did invite Ms. Murphy and Alicia, though. Amelia showed up, and I got to introduce her to Sophie. They became fast friends, especially when I told Sophie what Amelia and her daughter had done for me after Dad died, and again after Grams and Gramps died. Alicia couldn't make it due to work out in Los Angeles. She sent her best wishes, though, breaking with tradition. Since Sophie's father hadn't been seen or heard from in years, Diana walked her daughter down the aisle. I hadn't converted to Baptist yet, but I guess Catholic was close enough. I'm just glad that Southern Baptist weddings aren't as long and boring as Catholic weddings. Before I knew it, we'd exchanged vows and rings and said, I do. Then after a quick reception, we were off to Key West for a fun-filled honeymoon. We spent that whole week making love, screwing, sucking, drilling some more, licking, making love, pumping some more, and finally making love and pounding again. Well, we took short breaks for food and sleep, not to mention liquid refreshment. When we were finally ready to head home, I'm not sure who was walking funnier. I was pretty sure I drilled Sophie bow-legged, but I think I'd pulled every one of my groin muscles in the process. When we got back from our honeymoon sexathon to end all sexathons, life settled into a good kind of normal. Sophie got on days at the hospital on her 6-month rotation, so we had more time together. We went to work during the day and spent the nights and weekends together, just like most married couples we knew. We had a few spats, mostly over small shit. Nothing huge or life-threatening. No cops had to come out to our house, since we get a hold of our tempers, cool down, and talk through things like reasonable adults. It wasn't always easy, but I made the effort. So did Sophie. I have a hot Irish temper. Sophie had her hot redhead temper, too. She wasn't of Irish descent, but I thought I'd put as much Irish in her as possible. Make-up sex is the absolute best. Were we in a rut? Not on your life. She either did something to keep our love life interesting, or I'd step up and do something different. She asked me once if I would like to bring someone else into our bed. That would have turned into a huge fight if she'd been serious. I'd made my stance on marriage very clear before we got married. She laughed so hard at my expression, I couldn't stay mad at her. Then I proceeded to drill her bow-legged again. Would you be able to handle someone else, baby? I asked, after she finished her last aftershock. Hell no, she gasped, then giggled. I die, I swear. Y'all got the stamina of an elephant, Rick. Yeah, life was going pretty damn good, but you knew it would have to end sometime, right? I didn't. I was a wicked stupid shit though. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying here. I didn't actually screw up. Shit happened beyond my control, though. Just after our 1-year anniversary, our idyllic life together came to an epically screwed up end. It started, innocently enough. I was up in Gainesville, doing some IT house calls. The last one was on the university campus. I just finished up and left the dorm when I saw her and she saw me. Was I surprised to see Alicia coming towards me with a huge smile on her face? Hell yeah, I was. I grinned and grabbed her, hugging her tight. Damn, girl, what are you doing here? I asked with a laugh. Engineering Expo, she smirked, pointing to the big banner above the auditorium doors. My employer sent me here to check out some new tech. It isn't as big a show as the ones in LA and New York, but they still have some wicked good stuff here. Hey, it's still great to see you, I said, hugging her again. She gave me a kiss on the cheek, and I returned the favor. "Are you in a hurry, or can you grab a bite with me?" she asked. "I haven't had anything to eat since breakfast." I looked at my watch. It was only 4:15, so I still had time. "Sure, why not? I always got time for you, Allie." "Awesome," she grinned. "Come on, let's go get some BK." We ate, talked, and laughed. We got caught up, and she apologized for not being able to make it to the wedding. "Don't worry about it," I chuckled. "Would you like to come by the house and meet Sophie? I can give her a call and have her pick up some extra food on the way home." Alicia got a look on her face that I couldn't quite read. Then her expression turned to one of regret. "I wish I could, hon. I have to get going, though. My flight back to LA leaves in 2 hours. Next time, I promise." I was a little disappointed, but I shrugged it off. "No problem, sweetie. You're going to have to take a vacation pretty soon, you know? Come on down to visit us here. I know Sophie would love you, and I know you'd love her." For a brief instant, her face went blank when I mentioned my wife. Then she was all smiles again, but with a sadder smile than before. "That sounds awesome, Rick. I'd love to sometime soon. I'll call you. Okay?" "Sounds good, Allie. Let me know when, and we'll set up the guest room for you." I promised. I walked her outside, where she parked her rental car next to my Camaro. She looked at me, then threw herself into my arms. She hugged me so tightly, I started to have trouble breathing. Then she let me go and gave me a quick peck on the cheek. "See you soon, Rick," she said, getting into her car. "Yeah, hope so," I replied. "Bye, Alicia." "Bye, Han," she said, then backed out of the spot and headed off towards the airport. I wasn't sure, but I thought I saw a tear in her eye. Yeah, it was probably just the humidity here. Then I heard someone cough, but when I looked, nobody was there. Huh, go figure. I put it out of my mind. I drove home, in no hurry. So, imagine my surprise when I ran into Deputy Dog when I entered our town limits. I rolled my eyes, and he smirked as he motioned me to pull over. All I could think of was, what the hell now? "Hey there, Rick," he said, giving me his shit-eating grin. "We got an anonymous tip that a fella matching your description, driving a black and silver 69 Z28, was seen at a drug buy. Y'all don't mind if I give her a quick once-over, do ya?" Shit, I knew he was bullshitting, but what could I do? I knew what I'd do afterwards, but at that moment, I had to comply. "Fine, deputy. Just make it quick," I said, a bit testily. I never saw his fist hit my jaw. I felt it, though. I opened my door and got out quick, ready to beat this bumpkin into the ground. Rick," he said, shaking one finger at me. I noticed his other hand was on the hilt of his gun. "You want me to haul y'all in for assaulting an officer of the law? Or maybe I could just shoot you dead? What's it gonna be? You want me to show you what happens to dirty cops up in Southie, scumsucker?" I shot right back. "You assaulted me first, pig's hit. Undo your belt and fight like a man. Or are you a chicken shit as well as a chicken lover?" "Let me see here," he sneered, not rising to my bait. The word of a fine, upstanding law enforcement officer and Southern gentleman against the word of a goddamned Yankee devil. Now, who do you think they're gonna believe, Rick? "Fine," I said, backing down for the moment. I raised my hands and shook my head. "Do what you gotta do, deputy. I'm gonna file so many complaints against you. You'll be lucky to get a dog catcher's badge," I thought to myself. Shit, I hope the stupid pig couldn't read my mind. Strangely enough, Deputy Dog didn't find anything in his search, although he tore up the lining in my trunk. Then he started for the back seat when his cell phone buzzed. I caught only his half of the conversation, though. "Yeah, okay, let me go clock out and I'll meet y'all there, bye." Then he turned to me with a shit-eating grin. "You're free to go, Rick. Be safe. You hear?" With that, he went and got back into his squad car, then roared off towards the sheriff's station. I closed my trunk, got in, buckled up, and drove home. When I got there, I pulled into my driveway next to Sophie's car. I was already mad as hell, but when I saw Dwight's squad car parked on the street, I was ready to kill some stupid pigs. I left my laptop and repair tools in my car and ran up to my door. I threw it open to see Sophie sitting on the couch, crying. D-Bag sat beside her, rubbing her back. "What the hell, Dwight?" I snarled. "I thought we had this settled, shithead." Deputy Dog just pulled me over and spent almost a half hour trying to find some fictitious drugs in my car. "You'll be lucky to keep your badges after this shit." "Why'd you do it, Rick?" Dwight asked, shaking his head sadly. "Why'd you have to go and screw around on Sophie here?" Then Sophie looked up at me, and her look of despair turned to one of pure, unbridled rage. "You piece of shit," she yelled. "What the hell?" I shouted right back. "Someone needs to tell me what the hell is going on here, right now?" Sophie just sneered, looking at me like I was something to scrape off her shoe. Then she took her phone and threw it at me. "Look at that, a hole." I caught her phone and opened it, bringing up her pictures. There, plain as day, were pics of me and Alicia, outside of Burger King. One where we were hugging, and the two where we gave each other pecks on the cheek. I looked up and glared at both of them. "I didn't cheat on you with anyone, Sophie." I shouted at my wife. "That's Alicia Murphy. You met her mother, Amelia, remember?" Alicia couldn't make it to the wedding, but she was here for that tech expo at the university. We caught a bite to eat and caught up on each other's lives. She's my best friend, for shit's sake. Holy shit, you really think I'd do that to you? I was about to go on, but I felt something slam into the back of my head. Out went the lights. Wicked, stupid, shit. Yeah, this is where I started my narrative, back before all the background stuff. How didn't I see this coming? Well, for starters, I thought the stupid rednecks had given up. No such fucking luck. I didn't know how long I was out, but when I came to, I found myself cuffed to a chair. Before I could move, I heard them talking. "Don't worry none. We're gonna teach that damn Yankee something he'll never forget." D-Bag laughed. "You sure you're okay with this, Sophie? Teaching that cheating pig a lesson?" "Hell yeah, I'm okay with it," Sophie replied, laughing. I looked up, and the sight shocked me to my core. There were D-Bag, Dog, and Gumshoe, all naked on our bed, with Sophie. They were kneeling there, talking as the a-holes pawed her. Well, look who's awake now." Sophie sneered at me. When I tried to talk, I realized for the first time that they'd gagged me. All I could do was try and shout around the gag. But that only made them all laugh more. "Then let's get this party started," Dog said, leering at my wife. He leaned in and kissed her, and I had to look away. I don't remember what happened during the next hour or so. I'm pretty sure my mind shut down, in order to spare what was left of my sanity. My first coherent thought after that initial shock was Sophie tilting my head up and removing my gag. Then she turned and laughed at the three a-holes. "Well, he ain't dead yet." I vaguely noticed Sophie's body, now marked with bites and hickeys. I leaned to the side and puked my guts out. "Oh shit," Sophie said in disgust. "Now, I'm gonna have to steam the whole damn carpet again." Then she laughed. "Don't worry about it, Sophie," Dog said. "I'm sure we can clean it up after we clean him up. He'll be dead soon enough. I think we should tell him what happens to cheaters around these parts." "He'll find out soon," D-Bag said, cutting off his butt buddy. "Sophie don't need to know." "Right?" Dog said, suddenly sober. He zipped his lip. "So, this wasn't enough punishment?" I slurred, still trying to get my head and bum wired back together. "You know that you're gonna have to kill me, so you make me sit through this shit first? That's what all cheaters should get." Sophie spat, then spat in my face. "Sophie, for the 100th time, I didn't cheat on you." I shouted right back. "You're really gonna believe these stupid pigs over your own husband? You know that they've been looking to screw me over to get to you for a long time now." The anger quickly dropped from her face, leaving her with a horrified look. She turned those eyes on Dwight and the other two. "Is that true, Dwight?" she asked, her expression changing to one of realization. "Hell no, Sophie. We've known each other all our lives. Do you think I'd do that to you? It was a coincidence that Jerry here was up in Gainesville when he saw that damn Yankee and the witch together. Do you think we could have planned that?" Sophie then turned her accusing glare back on me. "He has a point, a-hole," she snarled at me. "Just because it was a coincidence," I snarled right back. "That doesn't mean he didn't take advantage of something innocent to turn to his own advantage. He'd just screw you, which is something the stupid pig has wanted for a long time. All three of those shit-eaters gotta screw you, Sophie. No matter how this ends, our marriage is over. You didn't trust me again. I don't think you've ever trusted me, no matter what you said you did. If those pics had been of me and some chick, naked in bed together, then you'd be right. But they weren't, were they?" Sophie looked like she might have been having second thoughts, but D-Bag spoke next. "Gerald, shut that damned Yankee devil up," Dwight said with a sneer. "Cut me loose and see how long you last, Gumshoe." I taunted, ready for more. I really hoped the stupid pig would take the bait. Too bad he wasn't quite as stupid as he looked. Instead, he slammed his fist into my jaw. He didn't knock me out that time, but I couldn't let him know that. I slumped down, letting my body go limp. "Maybe he's telling the truth," Sophie said. "Dwight, maybe it was all innocent, like he said. Nah, it wasn't, Gerald chimed in, now lying through his teeth. I saw them coming out of the Motel 6 and followed them to Burger King. They came out of the same room, Sophie. I wanted to shout that it was all bullshit, but I had nothing left to fight for anymore. Well, nothing but my life. Just the fact that Sophie took their word and some innocent pics of two friends hugging over my word after the long conversations we'd had about trust. It boggled my simple Southie brain. It also told me that our marriage was fucking over. I heard them all dressing, and then I felt the cuffs get taken off. They cuffed my hands behind my back after lowering me to the floor, though. It took all I had not to puke again when my face hit the puddle I'd already left on the carpet. They lifted me, but I stayed limp. To them, I was unconscious dead weight. Dog and Gumshoe carried me out to my car, then set me down before putting me in the passenger seat in my Camaro. You know the plan, D-Bag said in a low voice. Yeah, Dwight, Dog confirmed, keeping his voice down too. I'm driving, while Jerry takes his squad and follows me. When we get to Big Roscoe's pond, we throw him in, wait for the gator to grab him, then we set his car in gear and send it in too. It'll just look like a tragic accident. Dog laughed as he finished. It's kind of a shame to waste this classic, though, Gumshoe protested slightly. I'd love to drive her at least once, you know. No time for that, boys. D-Bag laid down the law. You get it done quick. That way, nobody sees it. No witnesses, no complications. Just for God's sakes, make it look like an accident. Got it? Yeah, boss. Both of them replied at the same time. Get it done, then get back here. You can each have Sophie again tonight, if you hurry. After tonight, she's all mine, D-Bag laughed. That sack of pig shit. I heard his footsteps walking back towards what had been my house. Then the door slammed shut, and I heard the driver's side door open, a moment later. All I could do was sit there, acting unconscious, until I could make my move. I really hoped I could make it soon, though. The drive went by quickly, since Dog loved gunning my engine for the sheer speed. I kept a running tally in my head of everything they now owed me. I'd never killed anyone before. I felt like I would finally be pushed far enough now, though. It was them or me, and I wasn't just going to lay down and take it. Let these stupid pigs die. Instead, I cracked my eyelids open a bit and saw that we were almost there. He pulled into the clearing next to Big Roscoe's pond, so I made a show of coming around. What? I slurred. Where am I? End of the line for you, Ricky boy, Dog said with glee. Yeah, glee. There's no other word to describe it. I knew you stupid rednecks couldn't fight, I sneered as he opened the passenger side door. You can't even knock me out for a whole quick drive. Then I started laughing. Shut up, he said, then hit me again. This time, I didn't even try to fake unconsciousness. I spit out the molar and laughed at him some more. Is there a problem, Brad? Gumshoe asked as he shined his flashlight on us. Nah, Jerry. Just dipshit getting mouthy in his last moments, Dog said, grabbing me and pulling my back against his chest so he could walk me towards the edge of the pond. Hey, you gotta take your cuffs off him first, Gumshoe pointed out. Thanks, obvious man. Dog laughed again. Then I felt the cuffs open and made my move. I know how cops are trained to take someone down in hand-to-hand. I also know how to counter it. First, I slipped my toe behind his heel and pushed backwards. He lost his balance and his grip, and I turned and grabbed for his gun. Wrong move on my part. He fell heavily, and I fell on top of him. He rolled me over on my back and pulled back a bit to raise his fist. My fist met his face first, though. He reeled back and tried to get up off of me. Then he put his hand up to Gumshoe. No, don't shoot him, he shouted. The town will hear your gun, dummy. Besides, we have to make it look like an accident. Remember? Yeah, you're right, Gumshoe answered, holstering his gun. They didn't see my foot come up and kick Dog right in the jewels. Deputy Dog staggered backwards, holding his balls. I'd put some stank on that kick with my good right leg, too. Then I rolled up and exploded upward, pushing him back towards the water's edge. Then Dog did something stupid as I moved in on him. He drew his gun on me. Screw it. I can shoot once. Nobody'll know, he snarled. As I went to rush him, I stopped dead. If I hadn't shit earlier that day, I would have shit myself right there. The biggest alligator in the world came out of the water like a shot, grabbing Dog's leg in a vice-like grip. Dog dropped his gun, grabbing for anything he could grasp to keep from being pulled backward into Big Roscoe's jaws. When his gun hit the ground, it went off, and the sound cracked through the night. Then he screamed, and so did Gumshoe, back where he now lay on the ground in a pool of his own blood. When the old Colt 1911 hit the ground, the bullet it fired hit Gumshoe right in the inner thigh. Now, I've seen femoral artery wounds before. One kid got knifed in juvie while I was there. From what I saw that night, that bullet had destroyed Gumshoe's artery. He'd be toast in moments. I walked over and grabbed him, grabbed his keys, and finished uncuffing myself. Then I grabbed him by the collar of his uniform shirt and dragged him towards the water. Dog was gone already. He was thrashing around a bit, and I heard gurgling from under the surface. Bubbles popped up top, but then they stopped. "Please," Gumshoe begged. "Please don't kill me." "I'm not gonna kill ya, Gumshoe. Either that bullet or Big Roscoe is going to do the job for me," I snarled. "And after this, D-Bag is next." "You can't win, Rick," he said desperately. "You'll be up for murder here. If you help me, I can make things easier on ya, though. I promise." "Shut up, you dumb, wicked stupid pig," I shouted. Then I heaved him up and threw him at the water. He screamed until his face hit the water. Then he started thrashing around, as even more of his blood flowed out of him. I shook my head and turned to leave. Then I heard him scream as his head broke the surface, only to have those huge gator jaws clamp down on his melon. I heard a sickening crunch and turned back to look again. Two reptilian eyes shone in the moonlight. "Enjoy your meal, Roscoe," I said, under my breath. Then I got into my Camaro, which Dog had left running, and threw it in reverse. I backed out of the clearing, careful to avoid Gumshoe's squad car. I considered going back to town and finishing D-Bag too, but then I realized that Gumshoe's last words were true. There's no way in hell I'd be cleared of this. I couldn't count on the sheriff, who ignored complaints until they got piled up too high to ignore any longer. The good old boys looked out for each other. I sure as hell wasn't one of the good old boys. I was just the Yankee devil. I hated to do it, but I ran. I drove north to Gainesville and pulled out my phone. I called Dwight. "Why the hell are you calling from that a-hole's phone for? You idiots," D-Bag raged. "It was supposed to go into the pond." "So was I. You wicked stupid piglet," I growled back. When he took a breath to talk, I talked over him. "Don't talk, a-hole. Just listen. Your boys tried to kill me tonight. Lucky for me, Big Roscoe likes the taste of bacon better than Irish sausage. Now, I'm leaving. If you try and somehow manage to track me down, I'll kill you. I know one thing for a fact, Bacon Boy. You won't last 5 minutes in Southie." Before he could say a word, I ended the call, turned my phone off, and threw it on my passenger seat. Shit, yeah, that felt good. As I drove, I seethed inside. The pain I was in kept my focused. Where did I direct my anger? At everybody in that goddamn redneck burg that I'd called home for the past 2 years. Yeah, I knew that most of them were hardworking, honest people. That didn't change the fact that the whole town was as corrupt as the South Boston Irish mob. If the whole damn sheriff's office would let this shit go on, something had to be done. Then I felt like shit, because I knew I couldn't do anything about it. So then I turned my anger on Sophie. That was kind of a mixed bag. She was as much a victim as I'd been, except she went along with being a victim in the end. She took the word of those shitheads over me, her own husband. Yeah, she'd known them all her life, but she also knew that they hated me. She knew that they'd do anything to screw me over, just because I didn't talk with their accent. Add to that, the fact that they always hated me for being with Sophie, too, and there you have it. It all came down to lack of trust, thanks to what happened with her dad cheating on her mom. She said that she trusted me, but when the chips came down, she trusted those stupid pigs over her own husband. Then something clicked in my head. I picked up my phone and turned it back on. There were several missed calls from Dwight, and one from Sophie, of all people. I'd let that slide for now, but I brought up Diana's number and called her instead. She picked up on the second ring. "Hi, Rick," she said. "What has you calling so late, hon?" "Some bad shit, Diana," I replied. "No matter what anyone tells you, I did not cheat on Sophie. You gave me that one chance, and I still haven't blown it. I need to know something, though." What are you saying, Rick?" she asked. I heard the guarded tone in her voice, but pushed ahead anyway. "Did you physically see your ex-husband cheat on you? Like, with your own eyes?" I asked, playing a hunch. She stayed silent for several moments. My guess was that she was thinking back to when the shit had gone down. "No, I heard it from Tim Bagwell, Dwight's father. I trust Tim, though. I know he wouldn't lie to me about something like that." "Yeah, right," I snorted. "Not that I don't believe you, but you can't believe anything those douchebags say, Diana. Dwight just had Brad and Jerry try to kill me. They tried to feed me to Big Roscoe." "What?" she gasped. "If this were April 1st, I wouldn't believe you. I'm not sure I believe you anyway. What are you talking about, Rick? I took a deep breath, then related the events of the afternoon and evening to my very confused mother-in-law. I'm telling God's honest truth here, Diana, I finished. I thought that Sophie actually trusted me, but she trusted those a-holes and some innocent pics of me and a friend as something more than they were. You mean she let them? Oh my God, she gasped, then started crying. They, Dwight's father and his friends, did the same thing when Carter came home that day, she admitted, her voice shaking. They said that they were doing it for me, to make me feel sexy after finding out that my husband was cheating on me. They said they knew I wanted revenge on him. Diana, I said softly, I know this is hard, but do you know exactly what happened to Carter? He was so distraught that he left in the middle of the night, she admitted. At least, that's what they told me. He didn't even pack anything. He just got in his car and left. I divorced him for abandonment, but I've never heard anything from him since that night. Now it was my turn to take a deep, calming breath. Diana, I think they fed him to Big Roscoe, just like they planned to do to me tonight. Oh my God, she gasped again, as the full weight of what I just told her sunk in. Diana, I know it sounds far-fetched, but I have a gut feeling that I'm right, I continued. You need to talk to Sophie and take her out of town. Brad and Jerry are Roscoe's lunch now, because of me. That means that Dwight might take it out on Sophie or you. I've known a-holes like him before. They don't like losing. I'll do what I can, Rick. You can count on that, she said, her voice now one of determination. Also, I can't stay married to Sophie anymore, I said, breaking the other bad news to her. After what she did tonight, there's no going back. I'm sorry, but I can't forget what she did. I might be able to forgive her one day, but that won't be anytime soon. Even then, I won't forget it. I know she thought she was right, but that's no excuse for being cruel to someone you claim to love. You're right, Rick, she said, sadness tinging her voice. I'm sorry, for what it's worth. Me too, I replied. Just get you and your daughter out of town. Tell her to divorce me for abandonment, same as you did with your ex. I'm going to disappear. Okay, I'll do my best, Han, she responded. Can you tell me where you're going? No, even if I knew, I replied, feeling my heart break even more. I don't know where I'll end up, but even when I get there, I'm not going to contact you or Sophie again. I'm sorry, Diana. I like you, in spite of the way you treated me. For what it's worth, I like you too, Rick, she replied, trying to hold back her sobs. Be safe, you hear? Yes, ma'am, I said, a sad smile on my face. You too be safe too. Get as far away from those pigs and that town as you can. Oh, and tell Sophie that everything but my business account is hers. She can list and sell the house, or whatever. Goodbye, Diana. I will. Goodbye, Rick, she said, and we ended the call. Anger still fueled me, pushing despair aside, for now. Once again, I turned my phone off and threw it on the passenger seat. I was now past Gainesville, headed northeast towards I-75. I had a long way to go, and no idea where I was going yet. Meanwhile, Sophie was lost in her plight. God, I felt so used. How could I have let Dwight, Brad, and Jerry do those things to me? I felt like shit, even after 2 showers to try and wash them off and out of me. Dwight had just gone, after receiving a call. He was mad, so he got dressed and left. I locked the door after him, and that was when I started to feel used. It was so vindictive and slutty, what I'd done to Rick. He deserved it, though. I saw those pictures of him hugging and kissing that girl. I didn't really care what color she was, no matter what I said when Rick tried to deny it. I knew that Dwight and Jerry wouldn't lie to me about something like that, would they? Oh God, I didn't know. I shuddered to think about what I'd just done. Rick was right about one thing, at least. After all the talks we had about trust, I'd done what I did when I saw him hugging Kate back at college. No, I did a lot worse than when I saw he and Kate hugging back then. I'd even given my approval for Rick to be fed to Big Roscoe. Oh God, I couldn't stop the tears as I covered my face with my hands and sobbed. What have I done? I cried. Then my phone rang, and I saw it was Mom. I took a deep breath, then answered. Sophie Jean, you need to pack some shit and get over here now. Mom commanded. Clothes, toiletries, whatever you need for an extended vacation. Not in the morning. Now. I knew that tone all too well. Mom knew something was going on, beyond what had already happened. I wondered what it could be. Mom, you're scaring me. What's going on? I asked, as fear crept in. Damn it, Sophie Jean. Get packed and get your skinny bum over here. Mom yelled. Okay, I'll be there as soon as I get packed, I said, capitulating to Mom's demands. I grabbed a suitcase and started packing. Panties, bras, stockings, skirts, shorts, jeans, and blouses all went in. Mom sounded scared, and that scared me. I didn't know what had happened, but I was going to find out. I hauled my suitcase and gym bag full of my toiletries out to my old Chrysler, threw them in the trunk, and drove to Mom's house. She came out to meet me when I arrived. It surprised me to see that she'd also packed in a hurry, dragging a suitcase and bag of her own. "Mom," I asked as I got out. "Pop the trunk, girl," she said. So I reached into the car and hit the trunk lever. She tossed her case and bag in the trunk and got in on the passenger side. "What the blazes are you waiting for, Sophie Jean? Get in and drive." I got in and hooked my seatbelt. "Where to, Mom?" "Hell if I know," she sobbed, tears running down her face. "South. Miami? Key West? Anywhere but here." "Okay," I said, starting up and throwing it in reverse. I pulled out of her driveway and turned south. "Are you going to tell me what this is all about, Mom?" "Rick warned me," she said, simply. "Honey, I don't think your father abandoned us, and now I don't think he really cheated on me." I felt so stunned at that I nearly wrecked the car. "Mom, what makes you say that? First, did you tell those boys that it was okay to dump your husband in Big Roscoe's pond?" Now I had to pull off to the side of the road and put my car in park as I sobbed uncontrollably. "Did you, Sophie?" she asked, gently. "Yes, but I didn't think they'd really do it," I cried. "I didn't even know that's what they were planning. I thought they were joking, you know?" "Damn it, Sophie Jean," Mom yelled. Then she breathed deeply to steady her voice. "You know that Dwight doesn't joke like that. Well, Rick is alive, and you're probably never going to see him again. I think you know, deep down, that he wouldn't cheat on you for anything. Your trust issues are mostly my fault, though. I filled your head with how all men are dogs who will cheat on you given half a chance. I gave that boy a hard time, but I know he loved you. He loved you and me so much that he warned me to get you out of town. Jerry and Brad are dead because they tried to kill Rick. That stunned me even more. I looked at Mom with horror, knowing that I'd basically signed off on my own husband's death warrant. "Did he tell you where he's going? Boston, maybe?" "No, and he said he doesn't know where he's gonna go," Mom said, shaking her head. "But even if he did, he wouldn't tell me. I think he's going to get as far away from here as he can. He said for you to list and sell your house. He ain't coming back." I pulled out my phone and tried calling Rick again. I felt horrible, and I had to make sure he was okay. I knew in my heart that we'd never be together again, but I still loved him. Just like before, it went straight to voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message, this time. "Honey, listen to me," Mom said. "We have to go now. When Dwight comes back from wherever he went, he's going to be mad as hell. Now drive." A new sense of determination swept over me, and I sniffled one last time as I threw the car into gear. I hit the gas, and we shot south. "You're right, Mom. We have to go someplace safe. That damn town isn't safe anymore, if it ever was." "Good. I think we should go to Miami, Hon. I can get a job as a secretary, and they have plenty of hospitals that need good nurses. Rick said he left you everything but his business account. My advice is to file for abandonment like he said, and let him go. We're gonna be fine, you hear?" "Okay, Mom," I replied, barely keeping it together. I'd lost the best man I'd ever known, all because of my lack of trust. I had to keep on track, though. I sure as hell didn't want Dwight to find us. After what had just happened to his two best friends, I just hoped like hell that Rick would be okay. Meanwhile, Rick was still driving to a destination he was yet to figure out. I don't remember much, really. I drove on autopilot as I hit I-10 and started heading west. I had to get the hell out of Florida, though. I could have gone north to Boston, but I didn't have much there, except for Ms. Murphy. No, I needed a clean break. I needed to disappear. Maybe if I was a Marine or a SEAL, I might have been able to take on that town with a team of other highly trained shooters. You know, like in those old movies where the ex-Green Berets take on and clean up a corrupt town. No, real life ain't like that though. That town was as corrupt as they come, or at least the sheriff's office was. But when the law enforcement is on the take, chances are so is the rest of the government. I learned that back in Southie. The Irish mob runs South Boston, and the cops look the other way. Granted, the O'Hara family brought some much-needed order, and they run a relatively clean operation. But when some other group comes looking for a piece of the action, the street wars get real bloody, real quick. I stopped for gas and washed my face in the restroom sink. I got a bite to eat, grabbed a cooler and every bottle of Mountain Dew Voltage they had, and hit the road again, still heading west. I checked my watch, seeing it was after midnight. I wasn't tired though, so I drove west on the interstate and hit Alabama. I finally got tired enough to stop in Mobile for the night and paid cash for a room at a Motel 6. I was up and moving. 4 hours later, though, I found a branch of my bank and cleaned out my business account. I'd been putting half of my earnings into that account for any expenses I might have down the road. I already had over $80,000 in it, thanks to starting it back during my senior year at Florida. I closed it out and put all of the cash in a duffel bag I'd bought. Dog vandalizing my trunk actually worked out for me, as I could hide the small duffel under where he'd ripped up the upholstery. I got back on the road, heading through Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. I drove like a bat out of hell, except when I saw a highway patrol vehicle. I only stopped for gas and a quick bite, here and there. That is, until I almost fell asleep at the wheel, just on the outskirts of Las Cruces, New Mexico. I found another Motel 6 and another cash-paid room for the night. I hit Phoenix, Arizona, the next day. I realized that I needed some new clothes, since my current jeans, polo shirt, and underwear had started to ripen considerably. So I grabbed another room at a Super 8 hotel along I-10 in the West Valley this time, showered again, and went looking for new clothes. I found a Walmart close by, so I did my shopping there. A new suitcase, t-shirts, jeans, shorts, socks, boxers, shoes, and I was good to go. All paid for in cash, of course. I didn't want to leave any kind of electronic trail. Yeah, I might have been overestimating Dwight's intelligence in tracking me down, but better safe than sorry. Part of me, a big part of me, wanted him to track me down, though. I'd see him coming from a mile away, and I'd act accordingly. In other words, I'd beat the shithead to death. It had been too long since I'd been in a really good brawl. Yeah, I know all about the Irish hooligan stereotype. The fact is, it's mostly true. I'd rather kick a stupid pig in the balls than listen to whatever asinine bullshit he's spouting at me. If you ain't Irish, you don't know how hard it was for me. I'd had to be civil to the 3 dickheads when they harassed me back in Florida, when every instinct screamed at me to stomp a mud hole in him and kick it dry. As much as I hurt, physically and mentally, I also felt some relief to be out of there. Oh, and did I mention that I got some stares when I went shopping? I'd been getting them since I first gassed up before leaving Florida. My face looked like a mile of bad road, thanks to the bruises from the pummeling the pigs had given me. Granted, my bruises had faded a bit by the time I reached Arizona. I still caught a few stares, though. While I shopped for necessities in Walmart, a lady came up to me in the toothpaste and toothbrush aisle. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm fine, thanks for asking," I replied. Then I smiled. Trust me, the other guys don't look so hot, either. I failed to mention that the other guys were now Dinosaur Gator Chow. She just patted my arm and nodded. "I hope you get better soon." Then she walked away. I know it might seem strange, but that lady kinda reaffirmed my faith in people. After the shitstorm I'd just been through, I really needed that. Oh, and I had to pick up a new phone, too. I got a burner phone and 1-month card for Cricket. It would do for now, anyway. When I got everything back to the hotel room, I took a moment. I had to take stock of everything that had happened over the past 3 days. In the space of 72 hours, I'd lost my wife, friends, and home, back in Florida. I'd almost been fed to a prehistoric monstrosity that once played an extra in that movie about the dinosaur park, too. Oh, and I may or may not be wanted by the FBI now. Yeah, I still hurt like hell, but I wasn't Gator Lunch, so that was good, at least. I took the good with the bad, and it helped a bit. I started thinking clearer, so I took care of some necessities. First off, I showered and scrubbed myself raw. I put on new antiperspirant, brushed my teeth, gargled with mouthwash, and put on new clothes. I looked in the mirror, combed my hair, and actually started feeling human again. Go figure, right? Then I sat down on the bed and activated my new phone. I plugged it into the charger, loaded in the time code from the card, and checked the number. Then I set it aside and took care of some necessities with my old phone. First, I sent a mass text to every contact in my customers folder, letting them know that I would no longer be able to provide IT support for them. I explained simply that I'd had to leave the state and wouldn't be back. Then I recommended the competitor that I respected the most to be my replacement. I'm sure that Kurt would appreciate the business. Then an idea popped into my head. Now that I was thinking a bit more clearly, I made one last call from my old phone. It rang 3 times before she picked up. "Rick, how are you, hon?" Alicia asked, pleasantly surprised. "I've been better, sweetie," I replied, tiredly. The anger in me had started to fade, and with it, my pain tolerance. "I hate to ask, but I need a favor." "Anything, Rick. You know that. What can I do?" I need you to recommend a place to stay. I'm in Phoenix right now. I'll be in LA tomorrow, though. Oh my God. What happened? Is Sophie with you? Are you okay? What's going on? Alicia asked in rapid-fire succession. Well, it's like this. I started. Then I laid it all out for her. When she heard that some asshat had taken pics of us at BK, she gasped. When she heard how those pics had been used to turn Sophie against me, she cried out in disbelief. How the hell? She exclaimed. Why the hell would someone do that to you? I then explained the how and why, as far as I could figure anyway, and she gasped again in disbelief. Then I explained how everything played out in the end, including almost becoming food for a dinosaur. She kinda laughed when I told her that luckily, Roscoe liked the taste of bacon better. That's why I had to run, I said, starting to wrap things up. I warned my mother-in-law to get herself and her daughter out of there, since I knew my life wasn't worth shit anymore. I know Dwight, though. He's a vindictive sack of shit nuggets. As much as I want her out of my life, nobody deserves what he'll do to her when he can't find me. I understand, sweetie. Okay, you can stay with me, Alicia said. When I started to protest, she cut me off. Listen close, Rick. You're staying with me, and that's final. Okay, then, I relented. Let me give you my new number. This phone is going in the trash. I gave her my new number and sent her a text to prove it. Okay, got it, she said. I'll send you my address to your new phone. If I'm not here when you get here, there's a key under the big rock in the garden next to the front door. Thank you, Alicia, I said, smiling in spite of myself. You're welcome, honey. There's a little catch, though. As my roomie, you're going to help with the house payments. I can do that, I promised. Don't worry. Once I get my freelance IT business up and running again, I'll be okay. There is one thing, though. Oh, I'm afraid to ask. Well, you remember those bum biters I mentioned, who tried to feed me to that ginormous gator? Since they were cops, there might be some blowback coming. I can't be sure that the local sheriff would go this far, but he might alert, or might have alerted the FBI about me. Okay, well, we'll deal with that, if for when something happens. Stop worrying so much, Rick. Fine, I won't worry so much, I snorted back. Thanks again, Allie. No need to thank me again, sweetie, she replied with a little laugh. Just drive safe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, see you tomorrow, I said. Then I ended the call. I fell back on the bed, then heard the text chime from my new phone. I picked it up and opened it, then found Alicia's text. She'd sent her address. All right. I memorized the Santa Monica address, then saved her number in my contacts list under Alicia, of course. After checking my new phone to make sure everything was cool, I took my old phone and removed the SIM card. Then I broke the card in half and threw the halves away. As I fell back on the bed again, I closed my eyes for a moment. I had to open them again immediately, though, since I heard a pounding at my door. I jumped up and made my way cautiously towards the door to the hallway. I peered through the peephole and saw a cop outside. I sighed in frustration. Wow, Dwight must have worked fast. He somehow got the FBI and law enforcement across the country involved, and they'd sure found me quick. Shit. Screw it. If I had to bite the bullet, so be it. At least I'd save Allie the hassle of being an accomplice. With that in mind, I opened the door. How can I help you, officer? I asked pleasantly. I'm sorry to bother you, sir. Have you heard any sounds coming from the room next to yours? He indicated the next room to the left of mine. Haven't heard anything, I shrugged, trying not to let my relief show. I just got back from Walmart. Had to do some shopping. Why? What's going on? Well, if you do hear something, don't hesitate to call 911, he said, turning away. Then he turned back and squinted at my face. If you don't mind me asking, what happened to your face? It looks like you went 12 rounds with Foreman. I snorted a laugh. Well, I just left my soon-to-be ex-wife back home. I caught her in bed with 3 guys. They did this to me, but I made him work for it. I had to get out of there, though. I filed for divorce before I left, and I doubt she'll fight it. I gave her everything, just so she wouldn't try to find me. Tough break, he said sympathetically, and shook my hand. Been through the big D myself. Good luck to you, sir. With that, he turned and walked over towards the reception desk. You too, officer, I said as I closed the door. After I closed the door, I leaned against it and let out a heavy sigh of relief. I'm not the best liar on earth, but my story had enough truth in it to be plausible. I felt no guilt in lying to a cop, though. I guess it's been my life experience. Almost every single cop I've ever known has been dirtier than a pigsty. I mean, sure, law of averages and all that shit. Not all cops can be dirty, right? I just figured it was easier to take them all as dirty, till they proved me otherwise. It saves on the hassle and disappointment. The sun had almost set outside, so I sat down on the bed and closed my eyes. I needed a drink, and something stronger than beer. Then it hit me. I finally got how my dad felt after losing Mom. I hadn't cried much back then. Now, though, with all the shit that had happened recently, I finally let my grief out. I ain't afraid to tell you. I wallowed in self-pity till I ended up crying myself to sleep. I awoke when the sun shined in through the eastward-facing window the next morning. Hell, I was hungry. I hadn't had anything to eat since the day before. A burger and fries from a damn good burger joint called Carl's Jr. I knew it as Hardee's, back east. In spite of my stomach grumbling at me, I felt better. A hell of a lot better. In fact, self-pity, I found, was its own form of therapy. Who knew? Go figure, right? So, with a smile on my face, I packed all of my new clothes and shit, grabbed my duffel, and made sure I didn't miss anything. Then I turned in my key card at the reception desk and left. I smiled as I put everything in my car, got in, started her up, and drove back to the freeway. As I entered I-10, I plugged in my tape deck adapter to my MP3 player and jammed out with some classic Metallica. Gotta love 50 gigabytes of storage space for music. I had a sizable collection. I hadn't listened to any music on the trip, till now. Now, I felt good enough to listen to something. As Creeping Death started playing, I grinned and nodded my head in time to the music. The drive took almost 7 hours, altogether. That's including stops for gas and food. I used the Maps app on my new phone to plot a course to Alicia's house, and got there shortly after 2 p.m. I noticed that it was Saturday. I really hoped she was home. As I parked at the curb outside her house, I saw 2 cars in her driveway. Probably her boyfriend. I mused out loud. I looked in the mirror, checking my bruises. They hadn't healed up all the way yet. Oh well, she'd seen me beaten up before, though. No sense worrying about it now. My face wasn't the only sore part of me, though. Driving that long, coupled with the bruises and other bodily aches, made me stiff as a board. Not in a good way either. I cut the engine and stepped out of my car, closing the door. Then I took a minute to stretch out the kinks before heading up to her house. I figured I could grab my shit after saying hi first. I walked as normally as possible, heading over the sidewalk and around to her driveway. I didn't want to leave footprints on that nice green lawn. As I stepped up to her door to ring the bell, it opened. Okay, maybe not a boyfriend. The girl who answered wasn't Allie, but she was hot as hell. Hi, I said, caught off guard. Is Allie here? Holy shit. I sounded like a kid going to see if his friend could come out and play. I almost laughed at the situation, but settled for smiling instead. Sure, she nodded, giving me the once-over. 1 second. Then she turned and called for Allie. Hey girl, some white boy is here asking for you, she shouted. My name's Rick, I told her. Some white boy named Rick is here to see you, she shouted back into the house again. Then I finally heard the sound of running feet on the floor, and Allie shot past her friend and into my arms. Oof. I oofed, staggering back as my friend wrapped her arms around my neck and hugged me tightly. Easy, Allie. I'm not at 100% right now. I guess the tension in my voice helped her realize that I was hurting. She backed off a bit and gasped at the sight of my face. Oh Lord, Han. What happened? It happened during that altercation I told you about, remember? I said, keeping it vague since we had unfamiliar ears, to me, at least. I looked pointedly at the hot chick standing there smirking at us. Alicia followed my look. Charisse, what are you doing? Allie asked. Enjoying the show, girl, Charisse replied. She smiled as she said it, though. Fine, whatever. Allie rolled her eyes, then looked at me. Come on in, Rick. Do you have anything with you? Thanks, I said, stepping inside so Charisse could close the door behind me. Yeah, I got some luggage in the car. I can grab that in a few, though. Hell, I could sleep for a week. The trip had taken its toll on my already abused body. Almost 4 full days of traveling from bumfuck, Florida, to somewhere a lot more civilized, by comparison. I think that's a good idea, Han, Allie nodded in agreement. You look like 20 miles of bad road. Gee, thanks. I snorted and smirked. Then I turned to Charisse and smiled. And who might you be? I'm Charisse Livingston, she responded, holding out her hand. She smiled when I took her hand and shook it. I'm Ollie's cousin, Rick Donnelly. I introduced myself. Pleasure to meet you, ma'am. I didn't know Allie had any cousins. Dad's side, Allie explained. She's my aunt's daughter. Come on, Rick. We need to get your shit inside, so we don't have to do it later. Charisse was cute, but nothing compared to Allie. As we all walked back out to my Camaro, Ollie's cousin whistled and nodded her approval. "Sweet ride," she said as she looked at me approvingly. "I like classics myself." "I'll have to give you a ride sometime then," I replied with a shrug, then winced. "After I get some recovery time, though." Charisse and Allie both burst into laughter. "What's so funny about my injuries?" I asked, a bit testily, as I unlocked the trunk and grabbed my duffel full of cash. I made a mental note to get it to the bank, first thing in the morning. "It ain't that, hon," Allie snorted another laugh. "Hey, you're really cute, for a guy, Rick." "I play for the other team, though," Charisse explained. I caught her meaning immediately. "Well, if I was a woman, you'd be in trouble then." I joked/flirted back with my most charming grin. "Too bad I like being a guy." "Okay, enough with the flirting, Mr. Blarney Stone." Allie smirked and gave me her famous eye roll. "Kiss me, I'm Irish." I turned the flirt on Alicia. "Maybe later, baby." She flirted right back and winked, causing Charisse and me to bust out laughing ourselves. Me with my duffel bag and go bag full of toiletries, Allie lugging my suitcase, and Charisse supervising, we headed back inside. Allie showed me to my room, while Charisse went back to watching TV. I saw that the room had a bathroom attached. I dropped the duffel and toiletry bags on the floor and turned to Alicia. "You're giving me the master bedroom?" I asked, surprised. "If you want to look at it that way," Allie said with a smile, as she set my suitcase down. "All of the bedrooms in the house have bathrooms attached." "I know I don't tell you this enough, but I love ya, Allie." I smiled again. I opened my arms and she came in so we could give each other a warm hug. God knows, I needed all the hugs I could get. Right then, just not the really tight hugs. Those I could do without, till my body healed up. Breaking away gently, Alicia turned and closed the door. Then she turned back to me. "Okay, Rick, get undressed. I'm going to run you a bath so you can soak. You've been showering this whole time, haven't you?" "Yeah," I winced. "How'd you know?" "Because you're a wicked tough-assed Irishman, with no sense whatsoever when it comes to being tough versus being smart." Allie diagnosed, nailing me with her sharp perceptive skills. "Guilty as charged, Your Honor," I pled, right hand raised. She just shook her head and smiled, then went into the bathroom to run me a bath. I listened to the water start as I gingerly removed my t-shirt first. Then I sat on the edge of the bed to remove my shoes and socks. That was harder than I thought it would be. All that damn driving really took my stiffness to a whole new level. Once I had those off, though, getting my jeans down turned into another battle. I just shucked them when Alicia peeked out from the bathroom and saw that I was down to my boxers. I couldn't hide the look on my face, and Allie rushed over to sit beside me. She looked my chest and arms over first, shaking her head with a look of concern on her face. Then she pulled me to my feet and got her first good look at my back. I hadn't seen my back yet, but from her gasps, it must have been bad. "Jesus," she whispered. "Only you would still be able to move at all, after what those pigs did to you." "I'll take that as a compliment," I retorted with a smirk. She came back around me and looked me in the eyes. All traces of humor disappeared from her eyes, leaving nothing but concern. "It might look worse than it is, Rick," she started. "But I've seen people get run over who aren't in as bad a shape as you are. What did those pigs do to you?" "I honestly don't know all the details," I admitted. "One of the stupid pigs knocked me unconscious, and they probably took turns trying to kick me to death. Looks more like they all tried at once." Allie marveled, shaking her head. "Well, Charisse is about to start her 4th year of med school. After your bath, I'm going to ask her to take a look at you." I sighed in resignation. "But first, I'm going to help you wash up," she continued. "Drop your shorts." "Seriously?" I asked. "Oh, come on," she snorted. "You don't have anything I haven't seen before." "Okay." I shrugged as I hooked my thumbs into the waistband of my boxers and dropped tro. The sight of Allie in Daisy Dukes and a pink halter top made things hard. Well, the pain in my body made it only semi-hard. Okay, I'll try to cut back on the puns." "Damn," Alicia whispered in exclamation. Her wide eyes seemed glued to my junk. "Hey, I'm a guy." I defended myself. "Yeah, I'm in pain, but I'm still straight and you're still wicked hot." My voice snapped her out of it, and she looked up into my eyes. "Still?" she asked softly. Now I blushed. I had no other alternative than to come clean. "Allie, I used to have a huge crush on you, okay?" "Okay, and we will talk about that later," she said, her gorgeous brown eyes never leaving my green orbs. "But first, we need to get you soaking so you can recover." She grabbed my hand and led me into the bathroom. Once in there, she helped my stiff bod into the hot, soapy water in a big, round tub. It looked almost like a jacuzzi. Thank God for those rubber duck anti-slip pads on the bottom, though. As I slipped down into the water, I groaned as the wet heat penetrated my stiff, sore muscles. I leaned my head back on the edge of the big tub and stretched out my legs. Then I closed my eyes as I felt my beaten body relax. I heard a little snap and opened my eyes a crack. Allie had set out 2 large soft towels and had then removed her halter top. The snap I heard was her unsnapping her short shorts. Part of me wanted to close my eyes again, but I couldn't do that. My mind shot back to Sophie, specifically the part where she had spat in my face. The guilt that had threatened to rise went bye-bye. I openly stared with my mouth agape as Alicia pulled down her lacy panties. Then she caught me staring. "What? I know you've seen naked women before," she said with a smirk. "Haven't you ever seen a naked black woman before?" "I just wasn't expecting this, Allie," I explained. Yes, I'd seen naked women of all shapes and colors before. Internet spicy videos when I was growing up, you know. "Won't your boyfriend be pissed off?" "No boyfriend right now, Rick," she said, shaking her head as she stepped into the tub beside me. I couldn't help it as my eyes wandered down her tight body. Then she turned and lowered herself into the water beside me. I heard her sigh as it had a similar effect on her as it had on me. Then she reached back and grabbed a big sponge. "You going to wash both of us?" I asked, dreamily. The hot water, suds, and a gorgeous woman in the water with me. How the hell did that happen? "I had a shower this morning, Han," she said, smiling. "I'm just going to enjoy the bath while I wash you." "You don't have to do this, Allie," I whispered a half-hearted protest. "Sush, sweetie." She shushed me with a long finger to my lips. "Just relax and let me help my best friend, okay?" I mumbled, then lost myself in the feel of her gentle strokes with the sponge over my battered body. After almost 4 days of pain-fueled adrenaline, the rush of endorphins almost made me pass out. I couldn't remember a time when I wasn't in pain before this blessed relief. Ollie's efforts felt so good as she set the sponge aside and started gently kneading my shoulders and neck. She didn't say anything, God bless her. She just smiled warmly and kept up her wicked relaxing massage. I groaned in pleasure as she worked the kinks out of my shoulders and neck. "That feels so good," I moaned, as she stopped kneading and just ran her slick hands over my chest. Then she started kneading my pecs, working more of her wonderful magic. She carefully avoided the bruised areas, but made the rest of me feel great. Then I mumbled, "I'll give you an hour to stop that." She stopped for a moment and gave me a little smile. "What if I want to do it for longer than just an hour?" "Then in my current state of disrepair, I'd have to let you," I grinned dreamily. When she finished, she leaned forward and gave me a sweet peck on the lips. "All done," she whispered. "Let's get you out of here before you turn into a prune." Then she stood up, and I had to raise my gaze in a hurry. She looked at me and smiled. "Go ahead and step out. I'll dry you off." "Ah, come on, Allie. I can dry myself off, you know," I smirked. "I know, but you're in worse shape than you thought, Rick," she retorted, raising her voice. "Even your bruises have bruises, okay? I'm still wondering how you're able to move. I'm a tough-ass Irishman, remember?" I snorted. Then I raised a foot over the tub's edge and stepped out onto a towel. Allie followed me out, standing on the other towel, grabbed a third big towel, and started drying me off. Her hands moving the towel over my body felt wicked awesome. I had to admit, I felt a lot better. The bath had relaxed my muscles quite a bit. I felt 10 times better than I had before when I first sat down in the hot, sudsy water. "You know, I could get used to this," I flirted a bit. "A gorgeous woman giving me baths and massages sounds like something the doctor would order." Alicia laughed good-naturedly, then finished drying me off. "Wipe your own feet, sweetie. I love ya, but not that much." "Yes, ma'am," I chortled, wiping my feet on the towel I stood on. Allie threw the towel she'd used on me into the bathroom hamper and grabbed another one for herself. I couldn't help watching as she dried her gorgeous body with slow, languorous movements. I tried to feel guilty. I really did. But then that image of Sophie spitting in my face popped up for a split second, and whatever guilt I'd been trying for evaporated. Yeah, I know that Sophie got bamboozled by those stupid bumpkins. That didn't come anywhere close to excusing her for her actions, though. None of those toolboxes held a gun to her head. It was still her choice to believe them over me. It was still her choice to let those sacks of shit nuggets bang her. it was still her choice to spit in my face. So, after all the shit was over, I decided to make my own decision regarding our marriage. I left. Some people say that you can't just flip a switch and stop loving someone. I think that's partially true. Love and hate are divided by a wicked thin line. Though, two sides of the same coin. Let me sort shit out for you. I didn't hate Sophie. I hate what she did. I did stop loving her, though. When I saw what she was capable of, that showed me all I needed to know. When you become scared of your spouse, you need to leave. When I got scared of Sophie, I had to get the out. I ain't one of those codependent douchebags who thinks he can't do any better, either. Yeah, I love Sophie. Past tense. I was in love with her. Also, past tense. I'd managed to crush my crush on Alicia a long time ago. I knew it was fully back now, though. Enjoying the show, slugger? She asked, giggling as she gave me a wink. Yeah, I am, I replied, with more confidence than I thought I'd had. Well, stop, she said as she grabbed her panties and shimmied them on. Then she grabbed her top and shimmied back into it. Then followed her shorts and sandals. All I did was stand there with my mouth open while she got dressed. She'd stunned me with those two words. When she saw the look on my face, she sighed. Rick, honey, you need rest, she said gently. She took my hand and led me back to the bedroom. She sat me down on the bed and sat next to me. I'm going to go get Charisse and have her take a look at you. I know that you don't want any doctors involved, since your visit could tip off those pigs back in Florida. Doesn't change the fact that you have been injured pretty damn badly. She's going into her 4th year, so she knows some shit, okay? Okay by me, I managed, giving her a half smile. Good, now lay yourself down, and we'll be right back. Yes, ma'am. I laid myself down to wait, and my eyes slammed shut on me. Now let's see the story Alicia's side. I couldn't believe what that ratchet witch and those pigs had done to Rick. I shuddered when I thought of all he'd been through over the past few days. Beaten within an inch of his life, or what would be an inch of his life for most men. Driving across the country on adrenaline, a little food, and a ton of Mountain Dew. Yes, I saw what he had in his car when Shari and I helped him with his bags. Shari, I called from the hallway. What's up, Allie? She asked. Can you come check out Rick for me? He's way worse off than I thought. I explained. Sure, let me get my stuff, she replied. She jumped up off the couch, went to her room, and retrieved her medical bag. Then she jogged towards me, and I led her to Rick's bedroom. Damn, she exclaimed. What hit him, a Mack truck? It's a wonder he isn't dead. Can you give him a check over, though? I asked. Do what you can for him. He can't go to a hospital. Shari gave me a skeptical look. Okay, but when I'm done, you're going to tell me just what is going on. Okay, I said and nodded agreement. I watched Charisse check Rick over. I wasn't surprised to find him fast asleep. The man had been through hell over the past several days. After all, she checked his pulse, prodded his ribs a bit, and listened to his breathing with her stethoscope. She breathed on it to warm it up before placing it on his skin, at least. Once she finished with her exam, she stood and came over to where I waited by the door and pulled me out into the hallway. He probably has some bruised ribs, some contusions, and a shit ton of other bruises, she said quietly. Nothing broken that I can tell, though. Your friend is one tough son of a witch. He was born and raised in South Boston, I said, gazing at Rick as he slept. He had to grow up tough, or he wouldn't have grown up at all. Shari got a thoughtful look on her face. Then her eyes widened. Wait, is that the Rick Donnelly? The one who played shortstop for the Gators? I saw the scar on his left knee. Is it really him? I didn't know you watched college baseball, I laughed. Yeah, that's him, all right. Wow, Shari whispered, shaking her head. I might have to try again for him. Don't even think about it, girl. I warned her. He's still married, and with the shit his wife did to him, he ain't ready for any kind of relationship right now. Oh, please. Shari rolled her eyes and smirked. I saw the way you looked at him, and how you're still looking at him. I get it, girl. You two got some history. Trust me on something, Allie. I saw the way he looks at you, too. I remember being with guys, and even helped one through a nasty breakup. The best thing for him is you. I think that big meat of his would be the best thing for you, too. But if you don't want him, I mean really don't want him, I'll take that big tool of his for a joyride. Who knows? He might reconvert me. God damn it. I knew she was right. I started to think she wasn't fully on the girl team, though. Okay, let's say you're right, I said, not quite ready to admit it. What happens if I turn out to be just a rebound sex? What then? If that happens, and judging by how he looks at you, that's a big if, you deal with it, she explained. I'm willing to bet that you won't be just a rebound sex for him, though. Now, she continued, before I could get a word in edgewise, you owe me a very thorough explanation about what happened to your man in there. Okay, let's go out to the living room, I said, and we walked out there together. I picked up the remote and turned the TV off. Then we sat on the couch, facing each other. I took a deep breath and relayed what Rick had told me. As I told her what had happened, Sharice's mouth fell open in shock. I could relate. At first, I thought she would call me and Rick liars, but when I finished, she just shook her head. That's too strange to be a lie, she said, still trying to wrap her head around it. It has to be true, because nobody would make up a story like that. I've known Rick since we were teenagers back in Boston, I said, giving her some background. He's a lot of things, but liar isn't on that list. I believe you, and him. Shari raised her hands in surrender. Wow, that's kind of messed up though. I mean, what the hell was that ratchet skank thinking? I know, right? I agreed. That hoe gave up one of the best, most loyal men I've ever known, on the word of some stupid redneck a-holes, all because they had some pics of us hugging before I caught my flight the other day. Shari nodded, then smiled. I hear you, sister. Think of it this way, though. Her loss is your gain. You're right, I nodded in agreement. Then I gave Shari my best grin. As soon as he's recovered, I'm gonna rock his world. Meanwhile, Dwight was in his own thoughts. Goddamn it, why couldn't that goddamn Yankee just die? Why did he have to run? Now I have to find him, or my daddy will have my butt in a sling. Rick Donnelly is a loose end, and Sheriff Tim Bagwell hates loose ends. Not even Sophie's sweet holes are worth this. Oh, and that damn witch and her 304 mother skipped town, too. Goddamn it. Jerry and Brad are dead, and I'm up shit creek. How the hell do I find a guy who doesn't want to be found? Don't even tell me how far out of my jurisdiction he is. I know he's long gone. Shit, he's probably up in Canada or down in Mexico by now. Nah, I ain't stupid enough to think he really went back to Boston. In spite of his phone call to gloat after killing my buddies, I knew it was a ruse. He wanted me to go up there and start asking questions, which would most likely get me killed. I had to hand it to him. I would have done the same thing in his shoes. That don't change the fact that he was still a loose end, though. I gotta find his damn Yankee butt, or it'll be my bum on the chopping block. I could try to find Sophie and her home mother. I bet they would know how to contact him. No, I had to throw that plan out, too. No way, no how, would he ever contact them. Not after what me and the boys had done to him, Sophie included. Shit, that was funny watching her spit in that a-hole's face. I grinned for a second, before I remembered what happened after that. I knew that if I didn't find him, I was done. How though? How the hell do I find a needle in a haystack of haystacks? He could be anywhere in the world by now. God damn it. Then it hit me, and I smiled. I didn't know how to find the dog, but I knew who could find him for me. I pulled out my phone and called my cousin in the Atlanta FBI field office. What the hell do you want, Dwight? Brett asked when he picked up. Hey, don't be like that, man, I said. I need a favor. Just listen before you say no. If you do this, we're square. That caught his attention. He owed me, or more accurately my daddy, for making an indiscretion of his disappear. We're square, he asked, more like a statement though. As in no more favors after this? Do I have Uncle Tim's word on that? You got my word on that, Brett, I promised. If Daddy says anything, I'll square it with him. Not good enough, he snapped back, making me grit my teeth. Get Uncle Tim to call me. If he says we're square after this favor, I'll do it. Until then, go screw yourself. Before I could say shit back, the a-hole hung up on me. Shit, just because I kind of got him into that jam when we were in high school, he automatically thinks I have it in for him. It was just a goddamn joke. So what if the girl ended up in a coma? How was I supposed to know she'd have an allergic reaction to the roofie? That was the main reason Daddy wanted Rick Donnelly taken care of. If he figured out that Jerry was up in Gainesville selling our homegrown roofies to the frat boys, he could bring down some shit on our heads. Shit. Now I had to convince Daddy to let Brett off the hook if he did us this favor. I cursed all the way to the station and went straight into Daddy's office without knocking. Well, he said, not even flinching. I called Brett, I said. He says if you let him off the hook, he'll do us a favor. I didn't tell him what it was, but I want him to use his FBI cred to track down Donnelly for us. He replied, narrowing his eyes. I waited until he spoke, hoping like hell he'd go for it. Do it. That's the thing, Daddy, I continued, swallowing hard. You gotta be the one to call him. He won't believe it from me. Shit, Daddy swore. He picked up his phone and dialed Brett's cell. He had to visibly calm down before he spoke to his nephew. Brett, do what Dwight wants, and we're square. You got my word on that? Okay, he'll call you in a minute. Bye. Then he glared a hole through my forehead. I just gave up a valuable resource, thanks to you and your idiot friends. He'd better come through, or it's your head, son. He'll come through, Daddy, I assured him, silently praying that the a-hole would come through. He'd better. Now, get the hell out of my office, he snarled. I stepped outside and called Brett. Okay, what do you want? He asked. He'd do it, even if he didn't like it. Family's family. I need you to see if you can track down a guy named Richard Donnelly. He's driving a black and silver 1969 Camaro Z28. I informed him, adding the pig's license plate number and social security number. What did he do? Brett asked. At least I knew exactly how to answer that question. He killed Brad and Jerry in cold blood. I snarled. He's a Yankee from Boston. I don't think he'd go back there, though. He probably knows that's the first place we'd look. We need to keep this on the DL, though. Brett laughed. So, you don't want anyone to know that two of your finest got whacked by a damn Yankee? Oh, the irony. What did you do? Roofie his wife and take her in front of him? Shit, was he close? No need for a roofie, though. Those pics that Jerry got had done the trick, just fine. I knew better than to deny it to Brett Harlan, though. He was the only one of my relatives from Mom's side that I knew. He was also biased enough to think that if I denied it, I must be lying. None of your business, I said, letting him know that subject was closed. I need it done as soon as possible, though. Once you locate him, call me. I'll take it from there. Fine, he gave in, swallowing his pride. I hope I have something for you soon, but it might take a while. If you call me, before I call you, it might take even longer. Got it? An a-hole to the end. Shit. I wished I could feed that self-righteous prick to Big Roscoe. Got it, I replied, swallowing my own pride. For a minute. Good. Bye now, he finished, hanging up on me. All I knew was, that pig had better come through. Now let's get back with Rick. Holy shit. I felt better than I had in days. Most of the soreness and stiffness was gone. I opened my eyes to an unfamiliar bedroom, wondering where I was. Then I threw the sheet off of my naked body and sat up quickly. I started to panic, but forced myself to calm down. Looking around, the memories came back in a rush. The road trip, lack of sleep, not much food, and too much Mountain Dew. Put that together with the beating I'd gotten on the worst night of my life, and I felt lucky to be alive. Then I remembered what happened in the bath, with Allie giving me the most erotic massage I've ever had. Then my bladder started shouting at me to drain the main vein. I got out of bed, still a little stiff, and made my way into the bathroom, my boner leading the way. Once I relieved myself and flushed, I sighed in relief. Then I made my way back into the bedroom and saw a note in Ollie's handwriting on the night table. I picked it up and read it. Rick, we put all your clothes in the dresser for you, and the duffel bag full of cash under the bed. Your toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash, and other things are in your bathroom by the sink. Hope you start feeling better soon, sweetie. Love ya. Love, Allie. I smiled wryly as I finished reading it. The little heart at the end was a nice touch. I've said it before, and I'm pretty sure I'll say it for the rest of my life. God bless Alicia. Always. I took a chance and stretched out before opening the dresser drawers. Still some soreness and a touch of stiffness remained. I opened the top drawer and grabbed a pair of boxers. I stepped into them and pulled them up, then walked back into the bathroom. Looking in the mirror, I winced as I saw what remained of my bruises. It's a good thing I'd kept in shape after baseball and physical therapy. Then I looked at my left hand, as if seeing it for the first time. I still wore my wedding ring. Just looking at it made me nauseous, though. I pried it off and tossed it in the bathroom trash. Then I splashed my face with cold water and looked myself in the eyes. This is the first day of the rest of your life, Rick Donnelly. Then I smiled and nodded to myself. I threw on a t-shirt, jeans, socks, and shoes, and gathered my wallet and keys into the pockets. Then I went looking for the kitchen and food. I hadn't heard anyone out there yet, so I figured they might be asleep or out someplace. Then I looked at my watch and blinked twice when I saw the day and date. I'd been out cold for over 24 hours. Allie had let me sleep for a full day and some change. I let out a relieved laughing sigh, realizing for the first time just how bad a shape I'd been in. I didn't see anyone when I made it to the kitchen. Hell, I didn't even know the full layout of the ranch-style house yet. I looked around and spotted another note on the counter. It was from Allie, same as the other one. She said that she had to go shopping, but to help myself to anything in the refrigerator. I shrugged and went to the fridge, where I found 2 six-packs of Guinness. Hell yeah. I grabbed a bottle and opened the cap, taking a healthy swig. Nectar of the gods. It is. It made me feel even better, since I knew she'd bought it for me. Alicia prefers wine or scotch, but she knows how much I love my Irish stout. However, knowing that beer by itself isn't a meal, even though it should be its own food group, I went looking for some real food. I found some ham and cheese and saw a bread box on the counter. Searching through the cupboards, I found some plates, too. I grabbed one, got 4 pieces of bread out of the box, and some ketchup out of the fridge. I popped the bread into the toaster, and when it popped up, squirted some ketchup on each slice. Added the ham and cheese to the sandwiches, popped them in the microwave for 45 seconds, and I had some real food. I ate as I went over some things in my head. Yesterday was Saturday, so today was Sunday. I'd have to hit the bank tomorrow to deposit my money. After washing my plate off, I decided to turn on the TV and see if there was anything on the news about me. Yet, nothing popped up. So I turned the TV off, went back to the bedroom and grabbed my laptop. I found another note on my laptop with the code for Ollie's Wi-Fi. That brought a smile to my face. Then I Googled my name and discovered that I wasn't listed anywhere in the recent news stories. That was good, at least. I wasn't a wanted man. Not officially, at any rate. I took another swig of beer as I frowned, going over everything I knew about Dwight, his asshat father, and his buddies. They pretty much ran the whole town. They stopped short of extortion and protection rackets, of course. Those would just make people pick up and move out. I knew that most of their revenue from fines came from ticketing out-of-towners, too. The more I thought about it, the less likely it seemed that Dwight would come after me. Sure, I'd fed his stupid bacon, but buddies to Big Roscoe. He'd still have to be way more intelligent than he was to track me down. He'd also have to be galactically stupid to actually try something, if he managed to track me down. Then again, knowing the average mentality in that Hickberg, I'd be stupid to overestimate Dwight's intelligence. So I sighed, took another swig of God's own brew, and shook my head slowly. Unless, or until something popped up on the news about me, I wouldn't worry about it. Hell, Dwight didn't have the resources to track me across the country on his own. That made me smile. I realized that some people might think I've been kind of emotionless after my marriage fell apart. They might be pissed that I'm not pining away for Sophie. No, I spent that whole drive from bumfuck, Florida, to Los Angeles, California, buried in what might have been, and how the hell could she, but hoping she was safe, in spite of everything. Sophie wasn't blameless, not by a long shot. She was still a victim, though. A victim of those pigs' plans for me, and a victim of her mom putting that distrust of men into her head. The fact that she chose to be a victim in that moment really hurt, though. No going back from that. I guess growing up like I did, losing mom and dad before my 18th birthday, then losing Grams and Gramps barely 4 years after that, helped me process tragedy and grief at a faster rate. My now screwed up marriage was just another tragedy to process, and I was pretty much done thinking about it. I went from love to hate to oh well, faster than most people, I guess. Mourned the death of my marriage and ready to move on. Now I just hoped she'd file for abandonment after 6 months, so I could really move on with my life. Still got a problem with that? If you do, go screw yourself. The only regret I now had was leaving my family heirlooms back in Gainesville at that secure storage place. I'd have to set something up to bring all that stuff here. I couldn't help sighing in relief that the house had been too small to put all that stuff up. Most everything in that house was Sophie's, anyway. I was still contemplating things when I heard the front door open. I heard Allie and Charisse talking, but couldn't make out their words. Then I heard a third female voice laughing. I figured I was about done ruminating, so I closed my laptop, set it aside, and went out to see who the new arrival could be. The new arrival was hot as hell. The way she was hanging all over Charisse told me everything I needed to know, though. Not that I'm complaining. She looked a bit like Rihanna, and that definitely wasn't a bad thing. They all laughed at something Charisse said. Then Allie looked in my direction and saw me. Well, look who came back from the dead, she grinned, coming over and giving me a hug. I returned her hug. Then I surprised her with a quick kiss on the lips. Yeah, back amongst the living. I smirked at her surprised face. Thanks for the beer and the food, Allie. Oh, and for the Wi-Fi code, too. She hugged me closer, so her mouth was right next to my ear. Then she lowered her voice. I'm just glad you're okay now, sweetie. You had me scared, especially after Shari checked you over when you passed out. I nuzzled her neck before replying, inhaling her feminine scent. Me too, Allie, I whispered. I can never thank you enough for everything you've done for me, you know? It's okay, Rick. she replied softly. Then she backed up and smiled at me. Come over and meet Jade, Shari's girlfriend. Sure, why not? I shrugged and grinned. Alicia led the way, with me following behind. How are you feeling, Rick? Charisse asked, looking concerned, herself. Way better than I did yesterday, I replied, giving her a hug. Allie told me that you checked me over, though. Thanks for that. Hey, you were in bad shape, honey, she smiled. I just made sure you didn't have anything broken and prayed for the best. Honestly, if you weren't in such good shape, you might be dead. Well, I'm glad I kept in shape then, I replied with a smile. Thanks again, Charisse. You're welcome, Han, she said, her smile growing a bit. Then she turned to her girlfriend. Anyway, Rick, this is my girlfriend, Jade Hightower. Jade, this is Rick Donnelly, a really good friend of Alicia's. Good to meet you, Jade, I said, extending my hand. She shook it and smiled. You too, Rick, Jade replied. You from Boston? Born and raised, I grinned. Southie, to be exact. What do you do here? I work in the IT department at Shari's campus, she replied, smiling at her girlfriend and blowing her a kiss. We met almost a year ago, but we didn't start dating till last week. Sometimes love takes time, I nodded, then glanced at Alicia. She noticed my glance and smiled back, before looking away. Then I looked back at Charisse's new girlfriend. I work IT too. Had my own business in Florida, before this shit happened. I heard it was bad, Jade said, squeezing her girlfriend's hand. If you want a job, a couple of guys just left out of the IT department. I'll think about it, I smiled. I'm more of a freelance type though. Well, Jade and I need to go study, so we'll leave you two alone, Charisse said, before Jade could reply. She grinned, grabbing her girlfriend's hand and leading her down the hall. Good meeting you, Rick, Jade called back, just before Charisse dragged her into what I had to presume was her room and shutting the door. You too, Jade, I called back, then laughed and shook my head. They're in love, Allie said, from right beside me. I looked into her eyes and saw something there. It was a similar look to what she'd given me before, when I first told her about Sophie. Then again, when I asked her to come visit us. Now I knew what it was, though. A look of longing, and it hit me all at once. I felt my heart shoot up into my throat and swallowed hard. I didn't know, I whispered, taking her in my arms. Not your fault, baby, she whispered back. I didn't realize how I felt about you, till after you were with that witch. Come on, we have some things to discuss. With that, she took my hand and led me to her room, at the other end of the house. Now I had a pretty good idea of where everything was, as far as the layout of her place. She ushered me into her room, closed the door behind us, and locked it. Then she walked over to her bed and sat down, patting the spot beside her. I sat down and looked at her as she took my hand. Rick, she started. You told me that you used to have a crush on me. Do you remember when you chased down Dwight Fisher to get Mrs. O'Connor's purse back? Yeah, I grinned ruefully. That's what got me sent to juvie. Well, I never told you this, but I saw it all happen, she admitted, looking me in the eyes. I saw Dwight tear past the house, where I was studying with Jenny McDonough. Then you came tearing past right on his heels. Jenny saw it too, so we went outside to see what was going on. I heard you yell at him, right before you grabbed him and pushed him down. He wouldn't let go of the purse, so you beat him until he did let go. That was when the cops grabbed you and pulled you off of him. I didn't even know this stupid shithead had let go, I confessed. I just wanted to teach him a lesson. I mean, old lady O'Connor. I knew Dwight was scum, but I never thought he'd try to steal from her. I know, baby, she replied with a smile. Then she reached up and stroked my cheek. I heard you yelling at him as the cops dragged you to their car, too. What I'm trying to say is, that was when I started crushing on you. Her news stunned me, and I think she realized it when my jaw dropped. She used one finger to push my chin back up. I cleared my throat. Well, I started crushing on you when you helped me study after I left juvie. I blushed, feeling like a teenager again. You have no idea how many times I wanted to ask you out, but I was dumb back then. I was scared to ask you out, since I didn't know if you'd date someone like me. Hey, I was young and wicked stupid back then. I didn't know what to think. Well, what do you think now? She asked, leaning in and kissing my lips softly. I think I'm done overthinking things, I replied, breaking the kiss for an instant. Then I kissed her with a passion that had been simmering in my heart. Now it boiled over, as I pushed her onto her back and started kissing her even more ardently. Everything about her cried out to me, begging, no, commanding my full attention, devotion, and passion. Soon we both got out of our clothes. How long does it take for an Irish hot blood to start doing what he loves to do? I took her to heights of heaven. When she finally came down, she collapsed back onto the bed. Her legs twitched and shuddered a bit, and she was breathing like she'd just run a dozen wind sprints. I moved up on my hands to get a better look at her face and noticed that her eyes were crossed. Wow, I felt even better about myself, knowing that I just caused an Allie quake of 6.9 on the Likert scale. "You're evil," Allie gasped laughingly, when her eyes finally uncrossed and focused on me. "I've never felt that great in my life. How did you do that?" "Not sure, but I memorized what I did," I grinned. "Want me to do it again?" She laughed. I thought what I'd had with Sophie was true love. That paled in comparison with how I felt now, though. In spite of some residual stiffness and soreness in my body, I felt good. No, I felt better than good. I felt great. I lost track of time as we held each other. Later, I watched her gorgeous butt as she kind of waddled into her bathroom. I almost laughed, but managed to keep it from bursting out. When Alicia was finally out of sight, I took stock of my emotional state. Sophie drifted through my mind first. I shuddered, and my stomach threatened to hurl, but I fought through it. Anyway, the only way I saw her now was covered in those hickeys and bites, after those dipshit deputies had finished using her. Well, that and her vengeful sneer as she spit in my face. She'd been a victim of Dwight's twisted bullshit, though. With her trust issues, he knew just how to play her. But damn it, she didn't have to go along with being the victim. I started getting mad, so I replaced her face with Diana's, my soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law. Despite our rocky start, we'd come to an understanding, even mutual respect. Hell, I like the old lady. She has a good head on her shoulders. I sighed as I shook my head. I knew she was part of the initial problem with Sophie's trust issues. I hoped that she'd gotten her daughter out of there, though. She was also a victim of D-Bag's twisted bullshit. Well, D-Bag's father's twisted bullshit. I started seeing a pattern in that whole mess, though. T-Bag might not be the mayor, but he's the real power in town. He runs the police force. It wouldn't surprise me if the mayor is in his pocket, or worse. Hell, it wouldn't surprise me if the stupid shit mayor was indebted to T-Bag in some way. From all the whispered rumors I'd heard there, pretty much everyone was scared of the Bagwell clan. That kind of scared me, so I pushed those thoughts away and focused on Alicia. Now I smiled. I tried to feel some kind of guilt, especially since I was still technically married. The Irish Catholic in me seemed to be out to lunch, though. As far as I was concerned, my marriage ended that night. When Sophie betrayed me and those stupid pigs tried to kill me, all bets were off. I just realized part of a long-denied dream with Alicia. All the feelings I thought I'd ditched about her were back. Then finding out that she feels the same for me? That's just awesome. Meanwhile, Brett was looking for his culprit. Screw those a-holes. Almost 6 months of looking, and I hadn't found any shit that I'd be able to work with here. Family or not, I shouldn't even be in this situation. If it hadn't been for Dwight and his a-hole father, I wouldn't even be trying to track down an innocent man for them. You see, I was set up. I'd just gotten home from college and had attended Dwight's high school graduation. With my degree in criminal science, I had applied to the FBI Academy at Quantico. I would start in 2 weeks, with the next training rotation. How was I supposed to know that Dwight would roofie me and that girl at the party? Then they blamed it all on me. But Sheriff Tim Bagwell would make it all go away if I'd do favors for him. The Bagwells run that town. It's the main reason why I left. Mom and Dad had told me to just go along with Tim's demands. They said it would be easier on me, in the long run. The favors were innocuous enough. At the beginning, anyway. Then they started telling me to divert suspicion if anyone contacted the FBI. I had to quash any allegations against the Bagwell family. That hurt the most, making me lie to my superiors in the bureau, especially Special Agent in Charge, SAC, Wilson, my boss. Every time, they said that those assault charges could resurface if I didn't do what they said. Now, here I was, looking for some poor man named Richard Donnelly. When I found out he was from Boston and had married Sophie Randall, it all started making sense. Dwight had been Sophie's first. He thought that gave him the right to her whenever he wanted her. My guess was that he'd finally gotten Sophie into bed again, and Rick had been targeted. There were over 200 men named Richard Donnelly in Boston alone. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. I had to call a couple more times to get more information on this Rick Donnelly, and Dwight finally told me what I needed to know. The man worked with computers, even had his own business in Gainesville and the surrounding towns. He'd left it all behind, though. I could relate to that. Did I believe that Donnelly killed Brad and Gerald? Yes. Did I believe it was in cold blood? Hell no, it was probably self-defense, knowing those pigs. I wouldn't be due back in the office till Monday, so I still had some time. I had to think though. Nobody in Boston with the name Richard Donnelly fit the description. At least I'd found a photo of him. I also knew that he had a secure storage locker in Gainesville, so I contacted the manager. He was skeptical at first, but finally agreed to notify me in case Donnelly wanted the contents shipped someplace. That proved to be my only luck so far. Earlier that day, the man that ran the lockup down in Gainesville told me that Donnelly had arranged to have his stuff shipped to another secure lockup in LA. And that was it. There were over 200,000 men named Richard Donnelly scattered across the country. The security lockup narrowed it down a bit, at least. Now I knew he was in Los Angeles. There were only 500 some odd guys named Richard Donnelly there. I was out of leads and getting impatient, so I decided on a long shot. I picked up my cell, found the number in my contacts, and prayed. "Hello?" her voice answered. "Sophie? It's Brett. Don't hang up." I said quickly, "Please, this is important." "What is it, Brett?" Sophie asked, and I heard the tension in her voice. "Believe it or not, I'm on your side here," I stated calmly. "What can you tell me about the night your husband disappeared?" "Why do you want to know?" she shot back. "Because his life is in danger. Dwight made the mistake of asking me to find him," I answered between gritted teeth. "You know that those pigs were responsible for Tina's coma, right? Dwight slipped both of us Mickeys at that party." "Yeah, I heard about that. Sheriff Bagwell made those charges against you go away," Sophie retorted. "Why should I even trust you?" "Because it's true. It's also long past high time Dwight and Uncle Tim get what's coming to them," I replied. She stayed silent for a few moments before speaking again. "Okay, let's say I believe you," she hedged. "I don't know if I'd tell you, even if I knew. I don't know, by the way. I just filed papers to divorce him for abandonment." "His idea?" I asked, playing a hunch. "Yeah, as you can probably guess, I'm not living there anymore. I've already sold the house." "I don't blame you," I said, relieved. I knew about Dwight's temper. I knew he'd go after her. If he thought she was helping her soon-to-be ex, wherever you are, don't tell me. Just stay there, or move further away if you can. Another long moment or two passed before she spoke again. She started off with a sigh. "If you are really on the level, I'll give you the number of a friend of his. She came to our wedding, and Rick trusts her." "I'd appreciate any help you can give me, Sophie," I replied, hoping she wasn't jerking my chain. "Okay, Amelia Murphy is her name, and I'll text you her number. Brett, you'd better be on the level here. You have my word, Sophie." She hung up before I could say anything else. I started to think she wouldn't help, but then I got her promised text. Sure enough, Amelia Murphy's name and number popped up on the text. I sighed in relief, then gave her a call. She answered on the fourth ring. "Hello?" a female voice asked. "Ms. Amelia Murphy?" I asked to confirm. "Yes, who is this?" she replied evenly. "My name is Brett Harland, ma'am. I'm with the FBI, looking for Rick Donnelly. There's reason to believe that his life is in danger." "FBI, huh? What aren't you telling me, Brett Harland?" Smart lady there. I took a deep breath and decided to come clean. "I just got off the phone with Sophie Donnelly, ma'am. She gave me your number and told me that you might be able to help me find Rick Donnelly. What else could I do?" "And what if I can?" she asked back, distrust evident in her tone of voice. "I'd appreciate any help, ma'am," I responded. "Rick isn't in any legal trouble that I know of, anyway. I really do need to speak with him, though." "Okay, but first I want your badge number," she said, so I read it off to her. "I work in the FBI's Atlanta field office, ma'am," I continued. "Feel free to check it out." "Uh-huh. Does your boss know that you're looking into this?" Ms. Murphy asked, still skeptical. I couldn't blame her. Once again, I knew that truth was the only way through. "No, ma'am," I admitted the truth. "I'm going to tell you everything I know. If you don't want to help after I finish, I won't bother you again." "Fine," she said. "Go ahead." She listened patiently as I started from the beginning. I didn't pull any punches, even when describing my erstwhile complicity in the Bagwell clan's doings. I told her about the party and how Dwight Bagwell had set me up. The girl had fallen into a coma, but Sheriff Tim Bagwell had made any charges against me go away. Then I got to the present day, still telling her the truth. "Ma'am, I know I'm going to lose my job over this," I said, wrapping up my account. "I know I'll probably end up in prison, too. I'm just tired of everything. The sheriff and his clan have run my town into the dirt. I want to take them down, but I'll need Rick's help to do it." "Mr. Harland," she started, "you're telling me that your family, your own flesh and blood, is so corrupt that they'd frame you for assault? All that, just to get an FBI agent to work for them? Ms. Murphy, my uncle is corrupt. That doesn't make him stupid, though, I replied. He's also paranoid as all hell. But hey, who better to manufacture and distribute drugs than officers of the law? Nobody would suspect them. I know for a fact that he has that entire town in his pocket. Well, either in his pocket or backed against the wall. The son of a witch handpicked every one of his deputies, personally. Everyone in town is afraid of Tim Bagwell. I know. I used to be afraid of him. Now I'm just pissed off. Pissed off at myself more than him, though. I never should have let them get to me. She didn't say anything for a while. Reminded me of my last phone call to Sophie. I knew she was thinking, so I let her have as much time as she needed. Can you give me 5 minutes, Mr. Harland? Ms. Murphy asked. Yes, ma'am, I replied. Good. Let me call you back. With that, she hung up. I spent the next 5 minutes looking at my watch, shaking my head, and cursing myself. I knew it was a long shot going in, but I had to try something. I wasn't expecting her to call back. When those 5 minutes expired, I sighed and hung my head. I tried. God knows I tried. 9 minutes after she hung up, my cell buzzed with an unfamiliar number. It had an Oregon area code, though. That much I knew. Hello? I said. I heard you're looking for me, a man's voice said, in a Bostonian accent. I'm listening. Say what you gotta say. Hallelujah and praise God above. Mr. Donnelly, I presume? I presumed. My spirit's rising. My name is Special Agent Brett Harland, FBI. You're a very hard man to find. Meanwhile, Rick was in his thoughts. The next 6 months were the happiest 6 months of my life. I managed to start up my freelance IT business again, even taking on some celebrity clients. Jade helped with that. She introduced me to some people she knew. Before long, I was once again building computers, troubleshooting laptops, and having a blast. Alicia and I got closer, too. We made each other happy. Not just sexually either. The more time we spent together, the more we found we had in common. Her engineering job took her up to Santa Barbara, sometimes. Most of the time, she worked from home, though. However, on one occasion, I went with her. I met her boss, Mr. Dunbar. The guy is cool and funny as hell. Her job consists of integrating experimental technology into existing frames, like cell phones and vehicles. When I asked him about integrating into laptops and PCs, we conversed for quite a while on the subject. By the end of that conversation, I had a once-a-month appointment to debug anything that might pop up. Basically, he started paying me $1,000 a month to do little more than nothing. The guy in charge of his IT department at Seven Eyes Incorporated is a dude named Will Campbell. Will and I became buds. Turns out he and his wife, Rebecca, also live in Santa Monica. They just commute every day, an hour there and an hour back. I knew it was too good to last, though. Way too good to last. That Saturday evening, we were curled up in bed together. We just finished making love when Amelia called. Oh yeah, that's right. Amelia knows and approves of us being together. Anyhow, Allie picked up and listened for a moment. Then she turned to me and put it on speaker. Okay, Mom, tell Rick what you just told me, Allie said. Hi, Rick, Amelia said over the phone's speaker. Hey, Amelia, what's going on? I asked. She relayed a conversation to me that she'd had with an FBI agent named Brett Harland. The guy was looking for me, but there was more. Turned out, he was related to the Bagwell shithead. So, you think he's serious? I asked, not liking what I'd heard. I'm usually pretty good at spotting traps. What surprised me was that I didn't see one here. I think you should give him a call, Amelia said. See what he has to say. I think he's sincere. It's up to you, though. Let me give you his number. She texted his number to me. Thanks, Amelia, I said. I'll give it some thought. Okay, Han, you two have a good night. Bye now. With that, she ended the call. What do you think? I asked Alicia. I think Mom has good instincts about people, she replied. Then she shrugged and grinned. She definitely has good instincts about you. True, I said with a smile. Okay, I'll at least hear what he has to say. Not going to take any chances, though. I grabbed my smartphone and initiated my spoofing app. It would generate a preset fake number from a list I'd programmed in. When I dialed the number for Special Agent Brett Harland, I put it on speaker before he picked up. After his hello, I told him to say what he had to say. Mr. Donnelly, I'm glad you called, he said, sounding relieved. I know you've been through hell already, but I need your help. So I've heard, I snorted. Look, Agent, I'm not sure what I can do here, and that's even if I believed you. I'll tell you straight up. I'm not a fan of your family. Well, neither am I. That's why I need your help, he snorted right back. What the hell are you getting at? Just say it already. I lose patience quickly with stupid pigs. I want you to come to the FBI Atlanta field office, he said. You're the only one who's escaped from my family, as far as I know. Well, besides Sophie and Diana. The mention of my ex and her mother made my throat tighten. Listen, shit biscuit, I growled. If you've hurt either one of them, I'm gonna kill you. Relax, Mr. Donnelly. This isn't like that, he growled right back. Listen to me. Your ex-wife and her mother are fine, and as far as I'm concerned, they can stay that way. I don't even know exactly where they are. Your ex still has the same phone she's always had, for as long as I've known her. All right, I replied. I'm kinda skeptical though. Why would you turn on your own family? You mean Ms. Murphy didn't tell you? He asked, sounding surprised. Then he told me what he told her, about them framing him for assault. They made the charges go away, because they wanted an inside man in the FBI. My bullshit detector didn't go off. That surprised me, a bit. Either this guy was the best damn liar in history, or he was being straight with me. Okay, Agent Harland, I said. I'm still not fully convinced here, but I'll meet with you. Allie smacked me on the back of my head, and I turned to look at her. She mouthed, not without me, you won't. Scratch that, I said quickly. We will meet with you. Okay, he replied. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. This will cost me my job, and will probably land me in the pen. It'll be worth it to keep those pigs from hurting anyone else, though. When you get here, we'll go in and see my boss together. Sounds good, I said. When would be a good time? Can you be here Monday morning? He asked. I looked at Allie, and she smiled. Yes, Agent Harland. We can be there Monday morning. We flew into Atlanta on Sunday evening. Allie had called her boss on Sunday, and he gave his okay for her to accompany me. He did ask for a full explanation, though. She gave it to him, and he was okay with it. He just told us to be careful. We checked into an uptown hotel. We each had an overnight bag, so we had enough clothes to last us a few days. We got the room for 2 nights, just in case. That night we made love long and slow, as if it would be our last time together. I love you, Allie, I whispered. No matter what happens, I love you. I love you too, baby, she replied softly, stroking my cheek. We'll be okay. You'll see. We fell asleep in each other's arms. We awoke the same way. The next morning, we were still on PST and had to adjust to EST, but we didn't have much jet lag. We were kinda half dead when we walked into the FBI's Atlanta field office, though. It's a good thing we'd had 2 cups of coffee apiece, or we would have been screwed. I told the desk agent that we were there to see Agent Brett Harland. After verifying our IDs, he gave us directions and sent us up. We got out on the 3rd floor, where we made our way to Agent Harland's office. I knocked on the door, and he answered it after a moment. Come in quickly, he said, ushering us in. After we made our introductions, he continued. In 5 minutes, we're going to SAC Wilson's office. She's my boss. I might not have a job after today, but it's long past time to do what's right. What changed? Allie said, tilting her head to the side. What made you say enough is enough? This, he replied, motioning to me. Him. They wanted me to track Rick Donnelly down and bring him to them. I've done some questionable things for Tim and Dwight over the past few years. Hell, I'm no saint. But being party to murdering an innocent victim of theirs, whose only crime was getting away from them. No, I had to draw a line in the sand, someplace and sometime. It might as well be here and now. I can barely look myself in the face, as it is. You're doing the right thing, Agent Harland, I said, nodding. He'd been put in an impossible situation, and he did what he had to do to survive. I respected that. I knew that feeling all too well, too. Thanks for that, at least, he sighed. Then he looked at his watch. Okay, let's go see the boss lady. We left his office and followed him down the hall. He stopped in front of an office door with Special Agent in Charge S. Wilson stenciled on it. Then he knocked. Come in, she called, and he opened the door for us to precede him. She sat behind her desk like a queen on her throne. From her dark complexion to her wavy black hair, she was a stunner. She looked like what Allie would look like as an FBI agent. She looked up and smiled pleasantly. Shut the door, Agent Harland. I presume these are the people you told me about, then? Yes, ma'am, he said formally. More specifically, Mr. Rick Donnelly, here. However, before we proceed, I need to tell you everything about my uncle and cousin, and the hold they have on Bufordville. Bufordville? That was the name of that one piss town. I'll still always think of it as bumfuck, though. Harlan took several deep breaths, then looked his supervisor in the eyes and told her everything. He started with that party he'd attended before FBI training and ended here in the office. I'll understand if you want my resignation, or if you want to fire me outright. I'll plead guilty to any charges you want to slam me with, ma'am, he pled his case. All I ask is that first, you let me in on taking my uncle and cousin down. So, those 3 investigations we were going to start, but you shrugged off, were legit? Agent Wilson said. Possibly, he nodded. Then he sighed. Hell, they were probably legit. I'm just sick of the blackmail, and I'm not going to let them murder an innocent man. You know, Harlan, I should fire you, right here and now. I should then slap the cuffs on you myself, Wilson said, sternly but calmly. Shit, I should contact the federal prosecutor as soon as you're in cuffs. She put her head in her hands and sighed heavily. Then she looked up at him. However, I'm not going to do any of that, Brett. You've been a damned good agent since you came here. You're a good friend, too. This is your one and only shot at redemption, though. If we pull this off, I'll accept your resignation and you'll be free to go. Now, everyone have a seat, and let's sort some shit out. We sat there for 3 hours. In the end, though, Harlan and Wilson ironed out a solid plan of action. It was surprisingly simple. Harlan would make the call to Teabag and set up a meet for tomorrow. Whatever place Teabag designated, the FBI would scope it all out. SAC Wilson authorized a full tactical team. For when the meet went down, Allie somehow managed to negotiate her way into going, too. She'd wait in one of the vans, with the FBI command and control people, including SAC Wilson. Me? Of course, I was going. I was the bait, after all. Both of us would be wired, of course. We needed to get them talking, admitting to crimes that they'd committed. When the whole plan was in the can, Harlan cleared his throat. Again, I'm really sorry for putting you in this position, Simone, Harlan said, using his boss's first name. I know, Brett, she replied with a nod. Now we have a clean shot at that sheriff and his deputies, though. You take those pissers down, and I'll be wicked happy, ma'am, I said and nodded to her. Same here, Allie chimed in. We'll get it done. Don't worry about that, Wilson smiled reassuringly. We'll have our tactical team snipers ready, just in case. I'll order them to shoot if they see one of them pull a weapon. Sounds good, ma'am, I said, nodding in appreciation. She nodded back and turned to Harlan. You ready to make that call, Brett? She asked. Then she pulled out a micro recorder and set it on her desk. Brett pulled out his smartphone and speed dialed a number. He put it on speaker before setting it down next to the recorder. At that point, Wilson started her recorder running. Tell me you have good news, Dwight's voice said. Got some great news, a-hole, Harlan quipped. I have your nemesis here with me. We can be there tomorrow. Should I bring him to the station? No, not the station, D-Bag replied. Too many witnesses around there, at any time of day. Bring him to my house instead. We can do the deed there, quick and quiet like. Holy shit, you're really gonna kill him, aren't you? Harlan said with grim certainty. Of course we are, D-Bag laughed. Then his voice turned serious. He killed my 2 best friends in cold blood. So yes, goddammit, I'm gonna kill that Yankee devil. You got a problem with that? No, I guess not, Harlan replied, shaking his head. After this, we're square though. Seriously, I'm not doing any more favors for you or Uncle Tim, ever. Hell, I'll be lucky to keep my job and not end up in federal prison. Well, Dad will be here tomorrow. You can take it up with him. Be here by noon, D-Bag said. Noon. Got it, Harlan replied tightly. Good. See you then, D-Bag laughed, ending the call. That's enough for conspiracy to commit, Wilson said with a smile. Dwight Bagwell implied that his father, the sheriff, was complicit, too. Then she smiled as she looked at Harlan. Brett, this is better than anything we could have dug up during our previous investigation attempts. Those were minor complaints. This case gives us at least 1 felony for Tim and Dwight Bagwell. Like I said, it also gives us probable cause to search both Bagwell residences. You're redeeming yourself, already. Thanks, Simone, Harlan replied, and they shared a smile. Then his smile disappeared. I just want this bullshit over and done. They've run roughshod over my hometown for too damn long. I do have some questions, though, Wilson said, looking my way. What did Dwight mean when he said you killed 2 of his deputies in cold blood? I didn't kill anyone in cold blood, I said, shaking my head slowly. Technically, I didn't kill them at all. Big Roscoe did, when they tried to feed me to him. Big Roscoe? Wilson's eyebrows shot upward. Who, or what is Big Roscoe? My theory is that he was an extra in Jurassic Park, ma'am, I said with a shrug. He's an 18-foot-long gator that lives in a sizable pond, in the swamp just outside of the town limits. Big Roscoe's kind of our town mascot, Harlan supplied. When I was a kid, my friends and I would go trying to catch glimpses of him. We saw him a few times, and Rick's right. He's enormous. He's been there as long as anyone can remember. Agent Wilson just shook her head and chuckled a bit. Then she turned serious again and looked at me. What happened that night, Mr. Donnelly? Well, ma'am, it's like this. I launched into my account of how Gumshoe and Deputy Dog took me out to Big Roscoe's pond. That, after having turned my ex-wife against me, by preying on her insecurities and trust issues. During my monologue, I felt Alicia take my hand. She squeezed, showing her support. When I finished, Wilson looked at me with skepticism mixed with sympathy. So, you drove across the country after having been beaten half to death? She asked, not knowing whether to feel sorry for me or laugh and call me a liar. It's true, Agent Wilson, Allie piped up. Have I mentioned God bless Alicia? Always? If not, God bless Alicia. Always. I didn't know how badly he'd really been hurt until he'd been at my house for half an hour or so. Apparently, my bruises had bruises, I shrugged. He also had a mild concussion, some bruised ribs, and his bad knee was acting up, Allie supplied. Old baseball injury, I shrugged when Wilson looked at me quizzically. I played some in college. You played for the Gators, Wilson smiled. I thought I recognized you from someplace. What happened to you was messed up. You would be an all-star by now, if that a-hole hadn't stomped on your knee. Thanks for reminding me. I snorted a laugh. Anyway, this has been fun. What time are we leaving tomorrow? My team and I are leaving today, Wilson said. We're going to get eyes on Dwight's place ASAP. You three are flying down tomorrow. When you land in Gainesville, I'll be there to meet you. Ms. Murphy, you'll ride with me. Rick, you will ride with Brett, and we'll keep an eye on you. When the time comes, we're going to take the Bagwell family down. Sounds good, I shrugged. Now, go back to your hotel and get some sleep. You're going to need it, she said, as we all stood up. Allie and I shook her hand and left. As we filed out, she called out to Harlan. Brett, stick around. I need your help with something. Yes, ma'am, he replied. Do you think those two? I said to Alicia as we walked towards the elevator. Something about the vibe that Harlan and Wilson had together. It got me thinking. Oh yeah, they're definitely screwing, Allie replied with a laugh. I guess some guys aren't so dense after all. When I looked at her questioningly, she explained as we stepped into the elevator. Body language, baby. Then there were the little smiles they exchanged. They kept calling each other by their first names, too. I think they're more than just sex buddies, though. If that's all it was, she would have slapped the cuffs on him. When we got to the ground floor, we left out and made a beeline for the hotel. Once there, we prepared for tomorrow. In other words, we screwed each other's brains out. We checked out the next morning, dropped our bags at the FBI field office, and headed to the airport to meet Harlan. From there, we took an FBI jet down to Gainesville. Agent Wilson met us when we landed, and once we stepped off the Learjet, I kissed Allie for a full minute. I'll be back, sweetie, I whispered to her as we embraced. You'd better come back, honey, she replied just as softly. I saw a tear in her eye, threatening to fall, so I smiled reassuringly. Hey, don't worry. They have it under control. Those stupid pig yokels don't know what's about to hit him. She laughed, in spite of herself. Then she kissed me one more time. Be safe, Rick. I'll be as safe as I can. Love you, I replied as I stepped back. Love you too, baby, she replied, then turned to walk towards Agent Wilson and her command van. Meanwhile, I joined Harlan at the car that Wilson had rented for us. When I asked why we needed a rental, Harlan told me that FBI sedans and SUVs are too distinctive, especially in a small town. I guess it made sense. I'd also noticed that most of the FBI goons were in plain clothes, which would help some. They still wore Kevlar vests under their jackets, though. Hey, as long as it works. As we drove south from Gainesville to Bumfuck, I decided to make conversation. So, you and Agent Wilson, huh? What do you mean? He hedged. Come on, man. Allie caught it right away. You two have that vibe between you, you know? I grinned. He shook his head and sighed. Okay, you got me. Yes, we've been seeing each other on the sly for just over 2 years. The FBI frowns upon relationships between supervisors and subordinates. That's messed up, man, I said sympathetically. He laughed a bit. It's not that messed up, really, seeing as how she should have arrested me, slapped me in cuffs, and sent my case to the federal prosecutor. Seriously, I earned that and more. No, man. You earned this. Right here, I said, smirking. If she didn't love you, who the hell knows when the FBI would get off their butts about the douchebag wells? She said it. This is your shot at redemption. Not to mention, getting those stupid pissers off your back forever. I guess you're right, Rick, he conceded. I just hope that Simone can forgive me when this is all over. I'm pretty sure she already has, Brett, I snorted. I might be wrong, though. Either way, if she hasn't forgiven you by the end of this mess, Allie and I will talk to her for you. I appreciate that, Rick, he said with a nod towards me. Those cuffs aren't too tight, are they? You mean these cuffs? I grinned, pulling them out from behind my back. I had to laugh at his expression. Then I took pity on him and explained. I can dislocate my thumbs, man. It won't work if the cuffs are too tight, but most cops don't tighten them all the way. If those pigs hadn't tightened the cuffs when they had me on the chair that night, it would have been a whole different ballgame. I knew Dwight was lying. When he said you killed Brad and Jerry in cold blood, he nodded. All I could think was, cold blood must be his term for self-defense. Hey, technically, I didn't kill him. I corrected him, raising my hands. Not my fault. Big Roscoe was just hungry for bacon that night. He laughed hard at that one. As an FBI agent, I should be offended. But Jerry and Brad were both pigs. Dwight's still a pig, I added, suddenly not in a good mood anymore. Dwight and Tim are sociopaths, Rick, he said, sober as the Pope. They believe that everything they do is right, no matter who gets hurt. They see people as playthings, nothing more. Hell, my mom, Tim's sister, is scared of him. If Dwight's mother hadn't died when he was a kid, maybe he'd be different. No telling for sure, though. I lost my mom when I was 12, and my dad died when I was 17, I admitted. Lost Grams and Gramps 4 years later, while I was at college. If it hadn't been for Alicia and her mom, Amelia, I might not even be here today. I hear you, he nodded. Dwight didn't have the support you did, though. Once Erica died, Tim kept Dwight away from us as much as possible. I'm pretty sure that even though Erica's death was attributed to a seizure, Tim had a hand in it. Seriously? You have no idea. He took a deep breath. Tim has a mean streak 10 miles wide. He's always been a vindictive man. If Erica even talked to a woman that Tim hadn't vetted, nobody would see her for a few days. Or if they did, she'd be wearing dark sunglasses. And God forbid, she should ever talk to a man. This is the 21st century, man. I said in disbelief. How the hell does Tim get away with that shit? Have you noticed how small bumfuck is Rick? He smirked, raising one eyebrow. I snorted a laugh when he used my name for the town. My uncle's family has owned that town for almost 200 years. They do what they want, to whomever they want. They hold back just enough, so most people wouldn't think of standing up to them. That doesn't stop them from still getting whatever they want, though. From what I heard from Mom and Dad, Tim is thinking of running in the next mayoral race, and he wants to appoint Dwight as sheriff. That ain't gonna happen, I promised him. We're gonna round him all up today, right? Yes, we are, he said with conviction. Then he glanced past me and snickered. Looks like Big Roscoe is hoping for more bacon treats. I looked, and sure enough, that dinosaur lay stretched out on the grass by his pond. Just as long as he doesn't like Irish sausage, I should be fine, I laughed nervously. Shit, that thing is huge. Oh wait, I mentioned that already. How old is that monster, anyway? Well, if the stories are to be believed, he said, smiling. He's older than the town itself. Gators and crocodiles keep growing throughout their lives. As big as Roscoe is, it wouldn't surprise me if those tales are true. Then he looked up and turned onto a side road. We're here. Put those cuffs back on, please. We need to make this look as authentic as possible. I told you before, Tim isn't stupid. He's also paranoid as shit. Gotcha, I said, closing the cuffs behind my back. Wait here, Harlan said softly, as he got out of the car and walked up to Dwight's door. He used the knocker, then walked back to the car and opened my door. As he helped me stand, the door opened, and Dwight and Tim came out to greet us. You did real good there, Brett, Tim said, smiling at his nephew. You got that trumped-up evidence? Brett replied, dispensing with the unnecessary niceties. That's no way to talk to your uncle, Brett, D-Bag smirked, waving his finger in the air. Especially the man who kept you from going to prison for assault. Well, Dwight, if you hadn't given me that roofie, I wouldn't have even been in that situation with that girl, Harlan fired back. Hey now, that wasn't my fault. How was I supposed to know she'd have a bad reaction? At least you were okay, after it wore off. I was just trying to loosen y'all up. Dwight raised his hands like he was completely innocent, but we had all we needed. You're never going to get away with this, Dwight, I said, breaking from the script a bit. You think so, do ya? He laughed. After we're done with you, I'm gonna track down that sweet little wife of yours. Then I'm gonna have more fun with her before I slice her throat open from ear to ear. Harlan said, appearing to think for a moment. Then he looked at me. Do you think that's all we need, Rick? I think so, Brett, I shrugged as I looked at him. I'm pretty sure he just admitted to drugging you and that chick at the party. Then he threatened Sophie and admitted he was going to kill me. That should be all the FBI needs. Everything else is just gravy. When we looked back at D-Bag and T-Bag, they looked shocked. You know the FBI is going to send you to prison too, a-hole? Tim shouted, recovering from his shock first. That is, if I don't kill you here and now. With that, he drew a gun from the back of his belt. Tim's hand didn't even finish rising to fire as an FBI sniper's bullet hit him in the side of his skull. By the time Sheriff Tim's body hit the ground, Harlan already had his gun out and pointed right at Dwight. Dwight Bagwell, you are under arrest. First, pull your gun from its holster and drop it. 2 fingers, only. Then raise your hands and interlace your fingers behind your head. Turn around and get on your knees. Don't be stupid like your old man. Dwight wasn't as stupid as his old man, lucky for him. He pulled his weapon out with his index finger and thumb, then tossed it away. When he turned around, though, he bolted for the trees. I got this, I shouted, slipping the cuffs as I took off after him. All I could think was, if he got away, he would harm Sophie and Diana. Sure, I didn't love Sophie anymore, but that didn't mean I wanted to see her dead. Geez, give me some credit here. Over the last 6 months, I healed up and started working out again. That included running every morning before going to work. I'd managed to raise my endurance threshold by a lot, not to mention my speed. I was almost as fast now as I'd been when I was playing baseball. Dwight didn't know that, and he was kinda out of shape, anyway. He had a beer gut, whereas I kept my beer in a 6-pack. He heard me behind him, then he made the mistake of looking back. When he turned forward again, he ran smack into a tree. I didn't hesitate. It was like Dwight Fisher all over again. When I jumped on him and started breaking his face, I lost count of how many of my punches landed before Harlan tackled me from behind. We got him, Rick. Stop. Let me cuff him and arrest him, he shouted, getting through my Irish haze. I relaxed. He's all yours, Brett. He let go of me, then calmly walked over to Dwight's prostrate body. He checked for a pulse, noted the broken teeth, and snorted. When he saw that Dwight was conscious, he read his Miranda rights to him. Me? I finally got my revenge on the pisser. The Yankee Devil got his due. The rest, as they say, is pretty much history. Tim Bagwell died, mourned by nobody at all. Well, except maybe Dwight. Even his sister and brother-in-law didn't bother shedding any tears for the pisser, though. It felt like the whole town breathed a sigh of relief when they heard he was dead. Every single deputy's home was searched. Some were actually clean, while others had drug stashes and or manufacturing going on. They found meth, marijuana, ecstasy, and custom roofies. Every last one of them, including Dwight, went down for at least 15 years each. Dwight, seeing as how he masterminded quite a few of the disappearances, got the death penalty once the FBI got around to trolling Big Roscoe's pond. Ironically, he also went down because they pinned gumshoes and dogs' deaths on him, too. Big Roscoe? Oh, he was fine. Once the 4 darts full of elephant tranquilizer wore off, the mayor was also detained, and it came to light that he'd known about and had been complicit in Tim's dealings. The FBI had to request help from Florida's governor, who sent in the National Guard to secure the town until the leadership and police situation could be resolved. Agent Wilson left her lieutenant in charge and came back to Atlanta with us. She wanted to debrief all of us in her office. Okay, she said, when we were all in her office. Then she sighed in relief. Have a seat, guys. When we'd all sat down in those uncomfortable government chairs, Harlan spoke first. Ma'am, I'll type up my resignation as soon as I finish the paperwork for the case, he said. You're going to do no such thing, Brett, she said, a little smile pulling at her lips. I'll get to that later, though. Right now, I want to tell all of you, good job. Hey, I just stood there in handcuffs, taunting Dwight. Oh, and I did run him down and beat the shit out of him. I shrugged, getting a laugh from everyone else. I don't know what I did either, except sit in that van biting my knuckles, Alicia added, grabbing my bandaged hand gently. You were both helpful in your own ways, she replied, smiling genuinely. It's because of you two that I'm not going to accept Brett's resignation. I don't care if Washington finds out anymore. Good for you. I grinned. Brett looked stunned, to say the least. Are you serious, Simone? He asked. I am going to have to reprimand you, Brett, she said. However, this was a big one, for all of us. I understand. They put you in an impossible situation. You could have told me, though. I trust you with my life, honey. I also trust you with my heart. Brett Harlan looked like he thought he was dreaming, for a moment. Huh. Ms. Murphy pointed it out to me. Sweetheart, she smiled, giving Allie a wink, to which my lady grinned. Then she turned back to look at him. She told me that you didn't have to inform me about what was going on. You did it because you love me, and because you want to be a better man for me. Brett Harlan nodded. That's part of it. I also wanted that trumped-up evidence gone, showing me in bed with that girl they claimed I assaulted. I knew that as long as they had that, there wouldn't be any real future for us. You mean this evidence? Simone said, holding up a folder, a smile on her face. Before Harlan could reply, she turned and fed the folder into her industrial-sized shredder. Then she turned back to us. We have enough evidence against that town's government as it is. No sense ruining a great agent's reputation in the process. Besides, we already have the recording of Dwight Bagwell admitting he set you up. I love you, Simone, Harlan said, standing up and walking over to her side of the desk. She stood up, and he took her in his arms. I love you too, Brett, she replied with a grin, then kissed him. Do you guys want some space? I asked, breaking them out of their kiss. I mean, we do have a flight back to LA tonight. Go ahead, you too, Wilson said, smiling. Thank you both for your help. If we need your testimony, I have your number. That's our cue to get out of here, Allie said as she took my hand and led me out the door. After that, things pretty much got back to normal for us. Somehow, Diana and Sophie got my new number. I couldn't be mad at Amelia, though. She had a point. When I called her to ask why Diana and Sophie were flying out to LA, she said that we all needed closure before we could move on. Like I said, I stopped hating Sophie a long time ago. I'd never love her again. But after what she did, could anyone in my situation? At least I'd finally stopped having the nightmares. When the knock came, we were just finishing our prep for our Independence Day celebration. We had quite a few friends and neighbors coming over. I'll get it, baby, I said, as I walked over to the front door. I thought it was one of our friends coming over to help. Maybe. Imagine my surprise when I opened the door. Sophie, Diana, you're both looking well, I said, in a state of shock. We talked on the phone, but I never expected them to show up here. Well, come on in. We're just getting our prep done for the 4th of July barbecue. You're more than welcome to stay. Much obliged, Rick, Diana said, giving me a hug. Sophie seemed reticent, but I hugged her too. I'm sorry, Rick, she said, tears threatening to fall. I'm so sorry for what I put you through. Stop worrying about it, Sophie. What's done is done, I said as I stepped back. For what it's worth, I forgive you, okay? That doesn't mean I'm taking you back, though. My heart belongs to someone else. Who is it, honey? Alicia asked, coming into the foyer. Alicia, this is Sophie and Diana Randall. I introduced them. Sophie, Diana. This is my fiancée, Alicia. Yep, that's right. I got notified by Brett and Simone that I was now officially divorced. Once it became a done deal, I proposed to Allie the next day. I gave her a ring, down on one knee. The whole nine. Hello, Allie said, smiling. She hugged both of them. Diana took it in stride, of course. Sophie, on the other hand, almost didn't hug back. It's good to meet both of you. I hope you don't mind the mess in the kitchen, but you're welcome to join us. Sophie started to balk, but Diana placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. We'd love to stay. When does the barbecue start? We're going to start about 4, or as soon as Charisse and Jade get back from the liquor store. Whichever comes first, Allie laughed. Sorry, they're our roommates. It's going to take them a while, though. They just left. Come in, have a seat on the sofa, and we can talk. And talk, we did. Sophie told me what I already knew. Our marriage was officially over. I just nodded and thanked her. Just before Shari and Jade walked in, Sophie looked at Alicia. Allie, thank you so much. I know I'm not really one to be giving advice to y'all, but please treat Rick better than I did. Trust him. Always trust him. Allie just looked at me and grinned. I saw the love in her eyes as she said, I already do. As a good friend of ours said, I trust him with my life, and I trust him with my heart. We had a lot of fun at the barbecue, of course. I grilled ribs, burgers, hot dogs, and chicken. We had salads for the vegetarians and vegans in our group. Ollie's idea, not mine. I'm a carnivore, and I'll always be a carnivore. Then, when the party was almost over, Allie handed me a Guinness and turned to our guests. "Can I have your attention, everyone?" she called out. When everybody looked her way, she smiled brilliantly and interlaced her fingers with mine. "I have an announcement to make. We're going to have a baby." I'm proud to say I recovered quickly. Then I took Alicia in my arms and kissed her lovingly. Life is good. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.